Futian did not know what everyone else thought. He currently had his own training schedule. Even if the micro-heavenly path did not come to fruition, he knew that his capabilities remained far above the average great emperor to be. Now that he had forged his heaven-slaying divine power, his attacking prowess would have increased. Those great emperors to be would not be his match anymore. At the level below the great emperor plane, he was indeed already one of the best, with nearly no competitors remaining, and he was continually getting even stronger as he trained. He did not know how much his micro-heavenly path was capable of evolving, but he had an inkling that if the micro-heavenly path could come to fruition, then he would surely be able to come out at the top ranks of the great emperor plane. At that time, he might even be able to engage in a battle with the 6 great emperors. Futian continued his cultivation, and 3 years finally came to pass again. A mystical and powerful aura once again saturated the skies, and beams of divine light came shining down soon after. The lights were brilliant and dazzling, and many people raised their heads to the sky, feeling at ease as they immersed themselves in the lights. "It's the light of Buddha." The cultivators trembled. It was a Buddhist divine item. The lingering traces of suspicion that many cultivators had held on to had at last been dispelled, and they no longer had any doubts in their minds. They understood that the heavenly path possessed a consciousness of its own and saw that the divine items it had bestowed upon the current 7 realms suited the respective realms. Otherwise, how might a Buddhist divine item suddenly appear? The heavenly path brought forth a Buddhist divine item. Even the strongest cultivators were shocked. This was the 6th divine item already. They stared at the upper skies, and following the descent of a dazzling light of Buddha, many of them felt their 6th sense sharpen and could somehow see the world around them more clearly. The light of Buddha fell onto them and entered their bodies. They felt as if it could help them gain enlightenment. That feeling was extraordinarily intriguing. Soon after, they saw a humongous Buddhist divine tree growing from the sky toward the ground. Is this the Bodhi divine tree? The cultivators wondered to themselves. It was the Buddhist tree of enlightenment. Ba. Just then, from a certain location, many great Buddhas started chanting the name of Buddha. They joined their palms together and made a bow of respect to the divine tree, showing their devotion. The heavenly path brought forth Bodhi to spread enlightenment. A Buddha Lord exclaimed softly. The divine tree kept growing downwards. Like all the other divine items before it, it directly penetrated the 99 heavens and grew between the heavens and the earth. Countless cultivators were excited because of this. The people in the 99 heavens had all soaked in the Buddha light of enlightenment, and their 5 senses all got sharper. They also possessed an acute 6th sense. The feeling it gave them was incredible. The divine tree of enlightenment that contained the path of Buddhism may not be able to improve their cultivation levels, but it might just help them cultivate better. Was this a benevolent act of the heavenly path? This heavenly path had cast down a few divine items that had all gone through the 99 heavens, allowing the people on earth to be enlightened to spread the power of the law of the heavenly path. The cultivators in the 99 heavens could feel the heavenly path's goodwill toward them. The top-ranked cultivators in the 99 heavens grew even more curious. Now that some of the suspicions they had previously had been cleared, and they were certain of the heavenly path's intentions, they still did not understand the purpose of it all. Could it be that the heavenly path wanted to have control over the laws of the 7 realms again, and thus gifted the divine items? Futian was also soaked in the light of the Bodhi divine tree. He sensed an extraordinary will. This divine tree can help with enlightenment training. It contains Buddhist wisdom, and even though it does not help one to become enlightened, it could still help one to understand the power of the other great paths, Futian remarked to the people around him. With this divine tree, the cultivators here would cultivate more effectively and increase their chances of becoming a demigod or passing the divine tribulations. Everyone nodded their head in agreement. They, too, could sense that this divine tree could enlighten people and was a tree of enlightenment. Futian looked up at the sky and said in a low voice, "The fact that the heavenly path would bestow such good fortune upon us seems like it wants to help us move into the God's age, reviving the prosperous age of cultivation in ancient times. Could it be that some consciousness had been left behind by the old heavenly path? If so, Then should they see the rebellious cultivators who had led the gods to oppose and destroy the old heavenly path as benevolent or evil? Was the existence of the heavenly path for good or evil? Yet, everyone also had the right to pursue excellence, and those cultivators, including the demonic lord, who had already reached the top, perhaps had no choice but to do so to improve further. According to the previous arrangement, this divine tree belongs to the Buddhist world. I seek the permission of the great Buddhas to allow the cultivators from the imperial palace to borrow it for training. Yi Futian bowed and made his request to the great Buddhas of the Buddhist world. Yi Futian had previously asserted that those from the imperial palace could use everything here to cultivate. Even if he had not made a request, the Buddhists would not stop them. After all, Yi Futian had a reputation, and it was hard to touch him. But out of respect for the Buddhists, he had asked for permission from the great Buddhas. Please do as you please, benefactor Yi. The bestowment of Bodhi by the heavenly path is for the enlightenment of the people so that they attain cultivation. How then can we monopolize it? Everyone can use it to train, a great Buddha replied in a loud voice. They did not mind the people using it, which surprised the cultivators from the different realms. Buddha is compassionate. Yi Futian joined his palms together. Thank you, Buddhas. Some of the cultivators from the divine prefecture also showed their gratitude. The cultivators from the 99 heavens were all filled with appreciation in their hearts. With this, perhaps they would be able to level up and multiply their chances of a breakthrough. Due to the generosity of the Buddhists, no contentions broke out over the possession of this divine item. The 99 heavens were as peaceful and quiet as before, and the cultivators from different realms all continued their cultivation peacefully. Yi Futian, too, was one of them as he strived to perfect his realm. Even he had felt that soaking in the light of the Bodhi divine tree had benefited his cultivating. That divine mountain ought to belong to the divine prefecture then. Just then, someone from the outside alleged. They were previously unsure which realm the divine mountain was bestowed unto. However, now each realm had received a fitting divine item, except for the heaven realm and the divine prefecture. It made sense that the divine mountain should belong to be the divine prefecture. As for the heaven realm, since the heavenly path was conceived in the heavenly palace, their divine item would surely be an extremely extraordinary one if it decided to bestow one upon them. Yup, I'm quite looking forward to 3 years later, someone uttered. It was possible that it would be the last divine item already. If the original realm had a share, too, then it would be the last 2 items. It was worth anticipating what was to come next. As Yi Futian cultivated, the people around him all made progress too. Little Condor even made a breakthrough with the help of the light of enlightenment. As Yi Futian and he shared a connection, his level of understanding was already beyond average, to begin with, but now with the aid of the Bodhi divine tree, he had undergone another complete transformation. At the same time, many were nearing demigod level, and it was only a little way to go before they reached it. When all the divine items finally appeared, perhaps the imperial palace would have produced a few demigods by then. Yi Futian was immersed in the light of the Bodhi divine tree, like all the other cultivators in the 99 heavens. They all trained under the Bodhi divine tree. Yi Futian started to traverse within his realm. He traveled along the unlimited realm, desiring to see the present state of the realm. How far had the realm the micro-heavenly path created evolved? He found the completion of many rules and laws and saw countless places similar to those outside, like the land of destruction and the dark abyss. After a year, he returned and resumed cultivation and gained enlightenment. This day, he sensed the divine power of the law of space flowing about him and a terrifying devouring power. As time passed, spatial whirlpools appeared around him. These whirlpools seemed to contain a vehement, devouring power. Anything that moved around them would be devoured. Clearly, he was still perfecting the laws and rules of this micro-heavenly path. In the 99 heavens, many cultivators were all making progress, even those already at the top. From the appearance of the gods' continent until the introduction of this micro-heavenly path, they had all made leaps and bounds in their cultivation. 18 years felt like they had gone by in a flash. To the cultivators in the 99 heavens, it felt like a very short period. They had never been so obsessed with cultivating before. And now, the 7th divine item was about to make its entrance. Would it belong to the heaven realm? there was a high possibility. The heirs of the will of Deva of the old heaven court and heaven realm represented Deva, which was the leader of the 8 legions. If the current heavenly path was the remnant of the old heavenly path, then it would mean that the heaven realm was the most important descendant. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. What was more, this heavenly path had appeared above the 99 heavens, which in itself meant something. All these seemed to be telling the people that if a divine item were to be bestowed upon the heaven realm, it would be an exceptional and extraordinary item. Every single person was looking forward to it. After all, they learned through previous experiences that they would be able to benefit from whatever divine item the heavenly path chose to gift. All had a piece in the pie, and they had gained further enlightenment and made significant improvements. As they waited, the day finally approached, and changes appeared in the heavens. The changes seemed greater than in the past, which was very obviously different. Countless rays of light descended from the sky dome and covered the 99 heavens, filling the place with an auspicious air. Accompanying these were other beams of light that also shone down and filled the entire sky dome with light, as if they contained the consciousness of the heavenly law. What kind of divine item will it be this time? The cultivators looked up at the heavens. It was the first time they witnessed a phenomenon like this. Would this divine item surpass the previous 6? One of the cultivators stretched his hand out under the lights. The great emperors-to-be were astonished. They were overwhelmed by such a spectacle in front of them. Oh! At that moment, as they were watching the sky, an aura emerged in the heavens and was moving about. Following that was a second and then a third aura. These 3 auras each morphed into 3 different airs that caused the divine powers in the heavens to go along with them. The innate 9 chi. The great emperors-to-be from the older days were stunned. Was the heavenly path creating the innate 9 chi? They knew what the synthesis of the innate 9 chi and the heavenly law meant. A heavenly emperor! The ancient emperors from the older days let out an exclamation in surprise. Heavenly emperor? Many people were perplexed as to why the words heavenly emperor came out. The heavenly path desires to instate another heavenly emperor. One of the ancient emperors raised his head to the sky and replied softly. His voice was full of shock. The synthesis of the innate 9 chi and the heavenly law would give rise to the 9 dragons' true chi. And this 9 dragons' true chi signified the heavenly emperor. Before the disintegration of the heavenly path, the heavenly emperor had access to the 9 dragons' true chi and was the head of the gods and all living beings. He could be regarded as the most powerful after the heavenly path and even first in the world. 9 dragons' true chi was created by synthesizing innate 9 chi and the heavenly law. As the heavenly emperor was able to soak the 9 dragons' true chi, he would not be part of the 5 elements, and divine powers beneath the heavenly path were unable to do him any harm. Even the yin and yang elements were utterly useless against him. Was this heavenly path trying to restore the glories of ancient days? They felt that they would probably be an 8th item belonging to the original realm. Previously it had been the 8 legions under the rule of the heavenly path, and today it was the 7 realms. With the addition of the original realm, it would be 8 of them, similar to the 8 legions of the past. Of course, this was just wishful thinking on the heavenly path. Would the current 7 realms and the original realm still be willing to be under the rule of the heavenly path? What was more, it was still incomplete and might be the remnant of the previous heavenly path. Futian opened his eyes as he felt an extraordinary bout of energy. It felt like the heavenly law itself. He looked toward the heavens and saw 9 rays of divine light transforming into the figure of a dragon. They descended from the sky and shone upon the heavenly palace in the heaven realm. The people knew long ago that the heavenly path possessed a consciousness and thus did not find the scene they had just seen unexpected despite being surprised. Did the heavenly path still desire to let the heaven realm be the spokesperson for the world? Just then, Ji Wudao stepped forward. He was floating above the heavenly palace and immersed in the 9 rays of divine light. The ablution of the heavenly path imbued him with a terrifying aura that caused many surprised faces. They realized that Ji Wudao had become a great emperor-to-be a long time ago. Futian looked at Ji Wudao. He already knew before that Ji Wudao was a person who concealed himself well, but was extremely powerful. He had met the heirs of all 7 realms before, and out of them, Ji Wudao felt the most dangerous. Who would have thought that he would be a great emperor-to-be already? It seems like before the people had arrived, Ji Wudao had already been abluted by the heavenly path, which was not surprising given that the heavenly path was located in the heaven realm. Many people in the 99 heavens looked toward Ji Wudao. Will the world see the appearance of another heavenly emperor? At that moment, they vaguely saw the heavenly emperor returning. The world is going to change greatly, Supreme Swordlord murmured to himself. I never thought it would be him. I see Swordlord favors Ji Wudao? Yi Futian asked. He inherited the will of the heaven realm and has been abluted by the heavenly path. He is destined to be the next heavenly emperor. There are many outstanding cultivators in the 7 realms, and Ji Wudao has always kept a low profile. But now, it seems like he will be the one that can shake things up, Supreme Swordlord answered. Perhaps he will be one of your most difficult opponents. Yeah. Yi Futian nodded. He did not know what the future would be like, but he was not afraid even if Ji Wudao were to become the next heavenly emperor. He had become the embodiment of the micro-heavenly path. The cultivators in the 99 heavens were astonished, but also somewhat disappointed. The 9-dragon True Chi was specially prepared to ordain a new heavenly emperor for the heaven realm. Below Ji Wudao, the cultivators of the heaven realm that were in the heavenly palace were also abluted with the 9-dragon True Chi. Although they were unable to inherit the position of the heavenly emperor, they could still reap the benefits of the ablution. Some of the great emperors-to-be looked keen on taking action, while some ancient emperors had even taken a step forward. They all had eyes on the 9-dragon True Chi. The 9-dragon True Chi was forged from the synthesis of the heavenly law and the innate 9 Chi, and it was also formed by the heavenly path when it first came into being. If one could immerse themselves in it, one would become more adept at cultivating the divine power of the law of the heavenly path. This would be helpful to them becoming emperors. The first cultivator who stepped out was a great emperor-to-be from the human realm. He headed toward the heaven realm, giving off an imposing godlike vibe as he walked. Divine power swirled around his body as a humongous divine matrix formed behind him. Divine lights shone forth from within the divine matrix, and spears appeared. Each spear was formed by the coagulation of the divine power, and it made one shudder to think how potent they would be in battle. I would like to get a taste of the 9-dragon True Chi, formed by the innate 9 Chi as well. Could I? That great emperor-to-be asked aloud. His voice boomed through the skies, but he did not dare be too brazen either. He had sensed that Ji Wudao was also a great emperor-to-be, like him, and there were more of them in the heaven realm as well. Ji Wudao glanced at the great emperor-to-be who had spoken. His face was devoid of emotion, but his eyes showed hints of disdain as he replied, "Get lost." The cultivators were slightly startled upon hearing Ji Wudao's words. He had always been low-key and restrained until the appearance of the gods' continent and heaven realm discovered the old heaven court relics. It was then that he first showed off his outstanding powers. Now, it seemed that he had become arrogant and confident enough to ask an ancient emperor to get lost. The silver robe worn by the ancient emperor from the human realm swayed as a gust of wind blew past. The robe rattled, and it felt like it had become sharp as a knife. The divine glow surrounding him grew brighter, and the divine matrix behind him enlarged to cover the sky. Numerous divine spears were aimed at the heavenly palace. His eyes turned silver, and upon moving his will, countless silver spears pierced through the sky at once. Dull noises exploded in the heavens, accompanied by numerous silver light beams that charged toward the heavenly palace. It was as if he wanted to split the majestic heavenly palace apart by just that one strike. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. Ji Wudao remained expressionless as he took a glance at the incoming damage. At once, a golden divine wall that spanned the distance between the heavens and the earth appeared in front of the heavenly palace. Numerous runes that were golden in color were carved on it, looking like golden lightning bolts sprawled across the wall, giving it an imposing appearance. Bang! 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 Numerous silver spears smashed against the wall and, to the shock of the watchers, were sucked inside as if they had been devoured and turned into nothing. This caused the great emperor-to-be to frown, and the divine matrix behind him continued to grow bigger as more spears formed. The silver spears of light pierced straight through the sky, terrifying the people on the ground with their immense prowess. The next moment, hundreds of millions of divine spears simultaneously rushed out, seemingly turning everything in front of it into dust. Humph! Ji Wudao grunted coldly. He raised his palm in front of him, and with a thrust of his palm, a golden pagoda immediately appeared on top of the golden wall. The pagoda was spinning round and round, and its weight caused the heavens to tremble. Everything seemed to come to a standstill, and even the attacking spears slowed. "It's the Futian pagoda," a few of the ancient emperors exclaimed in shock. The old heavenly emperor had owned a few top-notch weapons, and the Futian pagoda was one of them. The pagoda in front of them now was not a weapon but was instead formed by the coagulation of divine power to be used as an attacking technique. It, however, contained the overbearing presence of the Futian pagoda and was capable of overpowering anything. The Futian pagoda kept growing bigger and flew forward with a frightening rumbling sound. The divine spears broke into pieces as the pagoda displayed its prowess. The color drained slightly from the face of the great emperor-to-be from the human realm as he saw this. Subsequently, an extraordinarily large spear appeared within the divine matrix. He held the spear with his hands and transformed into the enormous figure of a god. He then aimed the spear straight at the Futian pagoda. Clang! Another loud sound erupted, and the spear shook, but the Futian pagoda remained spinning. Its divine light enveloped the great emperor-to-be, causing him to experience an unbearable amount of pressure. Bang! With another bang, his body was flung out. The figure of the god shook, and the spear in his hands broke. He let out a groan as he fell. However, the Futian pagoda was also forced back. Even so, divine light was still flowing around it and applying enormous pressure upon him. Ji Wudao moved his will and withdrew from the Futian pagoda. The divine wall also disappeared. He looked impassively at his opponent and stated, "Here are the 99 heavens, which is the territory of the heaven realm. Letting you soak and train under the heavenly path is doing you a great favor. If there's a next time, I will kill you." Ji Wudao's domineering stance caused the color to drain from the great emperor-to-be's face, while the other cultivators there were also utterly taken aback. Kill him? It seemed that things were different now. Besides Futian, now there was also the heir of the heavenly emperor, Ji Wudao. He was capable of killing a great emperor-to-be seemingly just by moving his will. Would the ancient emperors compete with the new emperors of today? In the present day, cultivators who were on their way to becoming emperors like Futian and Ji Wudao were most definitely stronger than the ancient emperors. Times had changed, and it was even more challenging to achieve emperor status now, so their still being able to do so was the best proof of that. Ji Wudao continued to soak in the 9-dragon true qi, and divine power surged around him, causing the 9-dragon true qi to enter his body. At the same time, he looked toward where the cultivators of the divine prefecture were situated and remarked, "Princess Duan can come train with me." All of the cultivators were taken aback by this. Ji Wudao had opposed the presence of all other cultivators, but here he was, taking the initiative to invite Princess Donghuang Diyuan of the Divine Prefecture to train with him. It was confirmed now that the Divine Mountain belonged to the Divine Prefecture. The 7 realms had all received an item of their own. In the past, when the human realm desired to form a marriage alliance with the Divine Prefecture, they had been turned down by Donghuang the Great. What was Ji Wudao's intention in doing this? Could it be that he was interested in Donghuang Diyuan? In the world today, Donghuang Diyuan was indeed the most eye-catching of girls. But this did not come as a surprise for those cultivators on the emperor level, and was as if they had expected this. No need for that. Donghuang Diyuan, however, disagreed and curtly rejected his offer. "When I become the heavenly emperor, you will be the heavenly empress," Ji Wudao continued, startling the cultivators yet again. Donghuang Diyuan continued ignoring him and made off in the direction of the Divine Mountain. The divine prefecture had accepted the divine mountain as theirs. Ji Wudao actually wanted Donghuang Diyuan to be his empress. He would be the heavenly emperor, and Donghuang Diyuan would be his heavenly empress. Many people involuntarily turned to look at Di Hao from the human realm. He, whose marriage proposal had been rejected by Donghuang the Great before, currently betrayed no emotion on his face, and no one could guess what he was thinking. If it were in the past, the heir of the human realm would certainly be far superior to Ji Wudao. After all, the heaven realm had been in decline, and the heavenly imperial palace was way past its heyday. The cultivators in the heaven realm, including Ji Wudao, were also cultivating in secret. How could they have competed with Di Hao? However, it was a completely different scenario today. A heavenly path had appeared in the 99 heavens of the heavenly imperial palace, and Ji Wudao had become immersed in the nine-dragon true qi and was on his way to becoming a great emperor, and probably the next heavenly emperor as well. The heavenly emperor still commanded a significant amount of respect in the present age. Before the disintegration of the heavenly path, the previous incarnation of the heavenly emperor had been the head of the old heaven court and the ruler of Deva, which was the leader of the 8 legions. Even after the disintegration of the heavenly path, the heavenly emperor was still a commanding figure. The daughter of the heavenly emperor, the sovereign princess, was a goddess that had charmed the hearts of all the men in the world. What a glorious era it had been, and everything that had happened lately made people feel that its glory days were on their way back. Ji Wudao was on his way to becoming an emperor and would inherit the title of heavenly emperor in the future, succeeding the throne. Would he be capable of leading the heaven realm toward a brand new age? As for Di Hao, he was only an heir. As long as the human ancestor was around, he would remain a mere heir. And evidently, the human ancestor might actually be around forever. Thus, the current Di Hao could probably no longer compete with Ji Wudao. All of these felt like a dream. In the long river of time, many changes had occurred. Besides Ji Wudao, Futian was also a classic example. He, who in the past had been reduced to a sorry plight by forces from the divine prefecture after his life, was now virtually unbeatable by anyone, save for a select few. Just one look from him, and a great emperor-to-be would not dare make a move. Aside from him, currently, only Ji Wudao was capable of the same thing. After he had threatened to kill, not a single great emperor-to-be had made a move. Ji Wudao glanced at the departing Donghuang Diyuan while he continued to soak in the nine-dragon true qi. The nine-dragon true qi encircled the heavens, and the earth flowed into his body. It was as if it was prepared for him by the heavenly path, bestowed only upon him. Ji Wudao looked away and shut his eyes. He hovered in the sky and soaked in the divine light. The nine-dragon true qi, formed by the synthesis of the heavenly law and the innate nine qi, encircled his body and abluted him. The stunning divine light made people realize that they were currently witnessing the introduction of the heavenly emperor. Is the nine-dragon true qi that formidable? Although Futian could sense that the qi was something extraordinary, he was not very knowledgeable about it, resulting in this question posed to the West Emperor standing beside him. The core divine power that is controlled by the head of the Deva is exclusive to the heavenly emperor, and it means the ruler of the heavens, the West Emperor replied. Legend has it that the nine-dragon true qi was created by the innate nine qi that had come about simultaneously as the heavenly path. The innate nine qi is also known as the nine elements and was the product of the three qi, Xian, Yuan, and Shi Wan, present when the world began. These three qi then produced another three qi, and the nine qi was the result. The nine qi is the source of all paths, and the nine-dragon true qi was born from the synthesis of the heavenly path and the nine qi. This is why the heavenly emperor can control all paths with the power of the nine-dragon true qi. He also cannot be harmed by the powers of the five elements and yin and yang. This means that other great emperors can only play a subservient role to a great emperor that controls the nine-dragon true qi. They would be completely no match for him. Futian listened quietly and nodded his head. He understood the origins of the nine-dragon true qi. Its origin was indeed exceptional, and the fact that it was personally bestowed upon the heir of the heaven realm, Ji Wudao, might mean something. But as things stood, Ji Wudao would be an intimidating figure in the future. Even the power of yin and yang and the five elements were helpless against him. Any power that could hurt him had to be supremely remarkable ones that only the best great emperors would be endowed with. At that level, there would naturally be some phenomenal figures. After the arrival of the Age of the Gods, extremely powerful great emperors would appear. This included the current 6 great emperors, who were all formidable cultivators. For that reason, Futian strived to gain enlightenment on the most extraordinary divine powers and supreme techniques. Everyone continued with their cultivation. This 3-year wait had turned out to be a disappointment for everyone, but they were able to witness the birth of the next heavenly emperor. Now, there was only one chance left. Or perhaps, there might not even be any more left. Would the heavenly path bestow a divine item to the original realm? No one knew. It would only be revealed after another 3 years. However, compared to 3 years before, the cultivators in the 99 heavens did not feel as excited. Knowing how strong Futian was, even if the heavenly path bestowed an item to the original realm, who could take it from him? It would probably be strictly guarded by Futian. Although he had let cultivators from the imperial palace cultivate near the other divine items, if the original realm had its own divine item, he probably would not be that generous anymore. Futian himself had no high expectations. He had already developed his micro-heavenly path, and even if he were to be given a divine item, it would not make much of a difference to him. He would not mind even if there were nothing. He would keep calm and carry on. He had to perfect his micro-heavenly path to become a real heavenly path, and he could become a great emperor. Futian continued cultivating, as did the others. Even if the heavenly path did not bestow more divine items, the 99 heavens were still a mecca for cultivation. There was the heavenly path and the path of the emperors. Donghuang Diyuan walked to the area where the divine mountain was located. Not only her, but also many cultivators from Donghuang Imperial Palace. She made her way up the mountain, then closed her eyes and quietly meditated. Many people looked at her. First, it was the human realm who brought up the prospect of marriage. Then it was Ji Wudao who wanted to make her his empress. If it was other women, they might have felt honored, but she was Donghuang Diyuan, the only daughter of Donghuang the Great. Perhaps she thought that it was more of an insult to her. She was probably facing a lot of pressure at present also. The 500th year of the fate of the Emperor of Donghuang the Great was nearing. Did this mean that Futian would also become a great emperor soon? If Futian did not become an emperor, no one could disturb the fate of the Emperor of Donghuang the Great. Of course, Donghuang Diyuan was not the only person feeling pressured. Yu Sheng held the fate of the devil world in his hands. Di Hao had been through many trials and setbacks. Lord Shaman had an upcoming battle with Yi Qingyao. Yin Gi and Duga Wuxia had to compete with the new generation. Some had already surpassed them. There was also the return of many ancient emperors who would regain their emperor status. Being on the demigod list just would not cut it anymore. For some reason, many people all felt some pressure, whether a lot or little. The appearance of the heavenly path would lead the cultivation world back to its glory days, just as it had in ancient times, and the start of the Age of the Gods would usher in a time of chaos. What sort of stories would unfold in this time of chaos? In the 99 heavens and the heaven realm, more and more cultivators were entering the demigod level, while soaking in the power of the heavenly path. Even more had passed through divine tribulations and were cleansed by the heavenly path. This ablution of the heavenly path was a real ablution that differed from those previously and made the cultivators much stronger. Hence, those who went through tribulations here were considered lucky to have received this rare opportunity. Even many had started to take on the challenge to reach the Emperor-to-be level. They were those that were top-ranking and on the demigod list. This present day, Lord Shaman of the Dark Court was soaking in the power of the Black Lotus. Divine power circulated him and was growing stronger by the minute. Above the skies, an incomparable divine might appeared, and Lord Shaman's aura also became exceedingly frightening, causing many people to turn to look at him. Is he about to become a great emperor? The cultivators wondered to themselves. Lord Shaman's cultivation level had been high all this time, and after attaining the Black Lotus, he could finally take the final step to becoming a great emperor. The aura he exuded now scared the cultivators in the Dark Court into withdrawal. The numerous cultivators in the 99 heavens also drew back. They knew that Lord Shaman would be undergoing his divine tribulation soon and would be on his way to becoming a great emperor. Many people involuntarily looked toward Yi Qingyao. Lord Shaman and Yi Qingyao seemed to be vying for the spot of ruler of the dark world. Now, Lord Shaman had become an emperor-to-be first and would start his journey to become a great emperor. For Yi Qingyao, this was not an ideal situation. However, Yi Qingyao did not seem concerned and continued her cultivation as usual. The divine tribulation of the heavenly path came down, and Lord Shaman raised his head to look at the sky. His eyes contained a deep hunger. He was finally on his way to becoming a great emperor. Sooner or later, the dark world would be his. After a few months, Li Daoshou of the Divine Prefecture received his divine tribulation of the Great Path. As the first ranked in Donghuang Imperial Palace after Donghuang the Great, he also passed his tribulation and started his journey to becoming a great emperor. On seeing this, the cultivators in the 99 heavens all looked shocked upon hearing this. Previously, only the ancient emperors had broken through and became an emperor-to-be, but they had merely regained the level they had been at before. It was now much more straightforward. Yet now, it was the cultivators of today who would be starting on the great emperor's journey. This also meant that the age of the gods was about to begin. More and more cultivators had become emperors-to-be, but Yi Futian took no notice. He continued immersing himself in his cultivation, and it was only almost after 3 years that he stopped cultivating. Although he did not have high expectations, he still did want to know if the heavenly path had prepared a gift for the original realm as well. Yi Futian examined the sky above the 99 heavens. He reflected that all the cultivators had leveled up in the 3 years, with a few even becoming emperors-to-be. He felt overwhelmed with emotions and muttered to himself, "The era before the disintegration of the old heavenly path was called the Age of the Gods. If the old heavenly path had not disintegrated, the Age of the Gods would probably have continued until today and certainly flourished to an even greater extent." The West Emperor, who was beside him, understood what he meant. He added, "Although cultivation is difficult, there are so many sentient beings on Earth that it would be impossible to count. Over millions and millions of years, it is not impossible that a group of extraordinary beings could be born. If the heavenly path had not disintegrated, there would naturally be cultivators on the way to becoming great emperors. At present, emperors-to-be are appearing one after another. One group is like me, who were formerly ancient emperors. The other group is made of cultivators from the present age. They were previously already the finest of the bunch, and with the addition of countless years of cultivation, their cultivation level reached the maximum possible. Now with the appearance of the heavenly path, the road to becoming a great emperor is open. And with the bestowment of the divine items and the tree of enlightenment, it is natural that things would be as it is now. It is not as easy as you think it to be." Yi Futian nodded after hearing West Emperor's words. He was right. After the disintegration of the heavenly path, it took many cultivators and many years of accumulation before this group of top-notch cultivators arrived. And now, with this rare opportunity presented to them, it was normal that many cultivators would be able to become emperors. He glanced at the cultivators from Yi Imperial Palace. They, too, had made significant progress, and a few had even become demigods. They were still hard at work, cultivating. "Who do you think will become the first emperor-to-be within Yi Imperial Palace?" the West Emperor asked. "Out of them all, Supreme Sword Lord has the highest level of cultivation. Previously he was already a demigod, and is only a short distance away from moving up. After that, he obtained a divine sword, so he had the best chance. It would probably be Sword Lord. Aside from him, I'm not very clear about the others," Yi Futian replied. "Yes." West Emperor nodded. Blind Tai's cultivation is pretty refined. He trains with the divine powers of the heaven-splitting divine axe and the divine mountain. He has found the best-suited cultivation method for himself. He also stands a chance of becoming an emperor-to-be in the future, along with a few others who aren't half bad. The cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace all have great potential. There may even be a few great emperors in the future. If there was ever such a day, how glorious would Yi Imperial Palace be? Yi Futian would create a new age apart from the 6 great emperors. Definitely, Yi Futian laughed and replied. When he had leveled up some more, he would become capable of gifting better training opportunities to the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace, just like the old Heavenly Path had done with the 8 legions in the past. As the two chatted idly, numerous people lifted their heads as finally another divine might appeared in the heavens. Their hearts raced as they waited. Sure enough, the Heavenly Path was about to bestow an 8th divine item. What would it be this time? A terrifying demonic chi suddenly appeared in the heavens. It swept through the land, and its frightening air of dominance struck fear into the hearts of many. Would this divine item be a demonic supreme treasure? The previous 7 divine items included those to do with the heaven realm, devil world, and the Buddhists. Now, the 8th item was to be a demonic item. This is no coincidence. It's for the original realm. This heavenly path has a conscience of its own and knows what's happening in the world. Therefore, the gift for the original world will be a demonic item. Everyone knew that Yi Futian was the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing, and Emperor Yi Qing once ruled over the demons in the world. He was later exorcised. The heavenly path bestowing a demonic item now obviously meant it was for Yi Futian, which could also be said for the original realm. Yi Futian was the representative figure of the original realm. At that current moment, Yi Futian was also feeling rather shocked. Even though he had not held high expectations for this divine item, he was still surprised upon sensing the demonic power. Did the heavenly path have such a thorough understanding of the beings of the world? Did the bestowment of the 8th divine item mean that it wished to rule over the world again? Finally, the divine item descended from the heavens. It was an enormous divine demon diagram that was so large that it obscured the sky. This divine demon diagram seemed to contain another world within it. The Hong Huang realm from ancient times was carved and had the sun, moon, and stars circling it. It included wind, fire, thunderbolts, rivers, mountains, and all tribes. Countless divine lights shone down. It was as if the people were looking at a beautiful and stunning picture of the demon world. From within seeped out a terrifying demonic aura, and different ones at that. It's the supreme treasure of the demon world. The cultivators were astonished. Although this item might not be as good as the heaven-splitting divine axe or the 9-dragon true chi, it was a supreme treasure and extremely valuable for those cultivating demonic powers. Would Yi Futian continue Emperor Yi Qing's legacy and rule over the demonic clans? He indeed seemed to already have many demons under him, just that he faced constraints due to his current level. The demonic clans had been in decline right after the fall of Emperor Yi Qing. Would this divine diagram bring about a change of fortunes? In 21 years, 8 opportunities had come from the heavenly path. This time, it was a divine item from the demon realm bestowed upon Yi Futian. The descendant of Emperor Yi Qing received a divine item from the demon realm today. And on this day, there were only the last 10 years left of Donghuang the Great's 500-year reign of the divine prefecture. What would the fate of the divine prefecture be like? How would the rivalry between Yi Futian and Donghuang the Great end? At the moment, Yi Futian was not thinking about 10 years later yet. He saw the huge divine demon diagram floating in the air, and his superconscious seeped into it directly. Instantly, it was as if he'd entered the demonic world inside the diagram. The world recorded in the diagram turned into a realistic world, appearing right before his eyes. He could sense a powerful demonic aura. There were dragons, phoenixes, kylans, kunpings, golden turtles, divine birds, gold-winged rocks, taotais, qiankis. All demons existed together in this demonic world. He could feel their existence. Of course, this was not real, but it felt no different from something real. He could feel the divine power of all sorts of demons in this diagram. "You can come in to cultivate," Yi Futian said to the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace. Many of the people of the Yi Imperial Palace cultivated the demonic way. However, many had not come here. If the great demons that joined him from Demon God Mountain could have assistance from such a divine item, their cultivations would improve rapidly. "Palace Lord Yi, are we able to study from this divine item to cultivate too?" Other cultivators asked. They were tempted, but they already thought that the divine demon diagram belonged to Yi Futian by default, and thus did not dare to be brash. Nowadays, no one dared to offend Yi Futian. Even great Emperor Tabis did not dare to do so. Since this is a divine item from the heavenly path, anyone who wants to use it for cultivation can use it, Yi Futian replied. He was extremely generous, which surprised many people. However, since Yi Futian agreed, they naturally would not hold back. Many people's divine consciousnesses entered the divine demon diagram in the void and studied the divine power of the divine demon. Third brother, see if this divine item suits you or not. Yi Futian transmitted his voice to Gu Donglu. Gu Donglio's expression changed as he looked at Yi Futian. This guy, they were extremely close, so he understood Yi Futian's underlying message. From what he was saying, was he preparing to gift this divine demon diagram to him? The heavenly path had sent down this divine item, yet Yi Futian wanted to give it away. This guy. I received a lot of opportunities after the God's Ruins continent was discovered, Gu Donglu replied by transmitting his voice. This item was a gift from the heavenly path here. It's best if you keep it. This item is extraordinary, but it's not that significant for me. It doesn't matter whether I have it because it does not affect my abilities. But if it suits you, it might be very beneficial if you use it for cultivation, so why not? Yi Futian said. Third brother, since when were you so polite with me? Second sister wouldn't be like this. Everyone in the world thought that he was the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing, but only he knew that he was not. Even if the heavenly path mistakenly gifted him this divine demon diagram, it is not the most compatible for him. Instead, it was better for third brother. Okay, I'll try it, Gu Donglu said, nodding. Then his divine consciousness stretched towards the divine demon diagram to study the power of the divine demon. Yi Futian smiled. Just as he had said, he had his own little heavenly path now. It was true that this divine item was not very meaningful for him. Naturally, making the most out of it would be the best. However, he could also study it and cultivate now. After his divine consciousness entered the divine demon diagram, he sensed the vast and boundless world. His divine consciousness touched different places in this world, feeling the powers of different divine demons. He also sensed the many divine consciousnesses that were cultivating in here. Oh! At this time, Yi Futian sensed a familiar divine consciousness. He followed it and found the region where the divine power of the pure-blooded dragon was at. Here, he felt the force of the dragon god and saw the ancient dragon god. His divine consciousness materialized into a silhouette in the world. He looked in one direction and asked, Princess, how come you're in here too? As soon as he spoke, Donghuang Diyuan's figure appeared in another direction. She had received the power of the dragon phoenix, so after she saw the divine demon diagram, she wanted to come in here and study the dragon phoenix divine power, but she was caught by Yi Futian. You were the one who said that everyone can cultivate the gift from the heavenly path. Is there a problem? Donghuang Diyuan asked. Plus, aren't people from your Yi Imperial Palace cultivating in the Divine Mountain? What you said is naturally correct. I was just a bit surprised. Yi Futian looked at Donghuang Diyuan with something like a half-smile, and his voice was a bit teasing. Donghuang Diyuan did not respond and continued cultivating, which surprised Yi Futian. This woman had been extremely arrogant before. How come she was more shameless now? However, she had rejected Ji Wudao's invitation before. The 9 dragons' true qi had descended from the heavenly palace that Ji Wudao had been at, but she'd still been unmoved. After all, Ji Wudao wanted her to become the empress. Donghuang Diyuan naturally would not go there. Be my guest. Yi Futian's divine consciousness left this place after seeing that Donghuang Diyuan ignored him. After a while, Yi Futian's divine consciousness exited from the divine demon diagram. He looked up into the sky. He could still sense the presence of the heavenly path. 8 divine items had descended from the heavenly path in the past 21 years. Did the 8 items correspond with the 8 legions? Did the heavenly path want to make the other 8 legions surrender and have the 7 realms and the original realm submit under the heavenly path? This was possible. Would more divine items descend? This was not only Yi Futian's thought. It was also the thought of all cultivators in the 99 heavens. However, most cultivators believed that this was probably not possible. After all, they'd grasped a rhythm in these 21 years. Since the 8 divine items corresponded to the 8 realms, there would be no more divine items naturally. In addition, would the Emperor's fate of Donghuang the Great end 10 years later? Would Yi Futian be able to become emperor in these 10 years? No one knew. Even if Yi Futian became an emperor, would he be able to sway Donghuang the Great? Donghuang the Great himself was a prodigy and genius, unmatched in history. He reached enlightenment, became a great emperor, and ruled the divine prefecture. Countless people worshipped him, and he'd created a new era. In 10 more years, he would have ruled the divine prefecture for 500 years. He had been an emperor for even longer, while Yi Futian had just become a great emperor. Could he engage Donghuang the Great in a battle? Perhaps only time could tell. Many people were a bit excited for the time to come. 21 years was like the blink of an eye. The last 10 years would pass very quickly, in an instant. Everyone was waiting to see, awaiting the changes of the world. Would the Buddhist clan's prediction come true? Would the emperor's fate of Donghuang the Great end? Above the heavenly palace in the 99 heavens, Ji Wudao bathed under the divine light. The 9 dragons' true qi had already entered his body and seemed to meld into his path. His entire body grew more dazzling, and he hovered above the heaven palace like the lord of this world. He was a heavenly emperor and could help the heavenly path manage the world order. Ji Wudao opened his eyes and gazed at the people cultivating in the 99 heavens. More than 20 years have passed, he stated. The heavenly path from the 99 heavens of the heaven realm, Heavenly Emperor Palace bestowed divine gifts for the world to cultivate with. You all have cultivated for more than 20 years here as well. Now, is it time for you to leave? His voice filled the 99 heavens. Countless people opened their eyes and looked up at Ji Wudao. They saw that, at this moment, Ji Wudao already had the appearance of a heavenly emperor. He was unparalleled and high and mighty, looming above all life. Ji Wudao had given the order of expulsion, making everyone leave. However, the complete heavenly path order was here. This was an emperor path opportunity where cultivators could reach enlightenment. Who would want to miss this chance? Who was willing to leave? Plus, the divine item from the heavenly path was here. Who could bear to leave? Ji Wudao, this place has the emperor path opportunity. People of all 7 realms have gathered here. Plus, a divine item has descended from the heavenly path. The heavenly path here has a consciousness. Since it's willing to drop down an opportunity, it's naturally giving all cultivators a chance. Everyone can cultivate here. The voice that spoke up actually belonged to Di Hao of the human realm. Divine light wrapped around his body. He was also in the great Emperor-to-be plane. Actually, Di Hao and Ji Wudao were the same. He had already entered the great Emperor-to-be plane before coming here. The human ancestor should have found a path of the emperors in the human realm and invited cultivators of every realm there. However, this was incomparable to the heavenly path here. Ji Wudao's eyes scanned Di Hao, and he said, as expected, people are never satisfied. Do not forget where you are standing right now. This is the 99 heavens of my heaven realm. So what? A great emperor-to-be plane from the dark world said indifferently. Strong cultivators from every realm are gathered here. Is the heavenly imperial palace going to drive us out? Right now, strong cultivators from all the top forces were there. No matter how strong Ji Wudao was, would he be able to force everyone to leave? If this led to backlash, it wasn't certain who would defeat whom. Hearing the other's words, Ji Wudao's gaze turned toward the great emperor-to-be and suddenly smiled. It looked a little sarcastic. His body continued upward, and Ji Wudao was floating above the peak of the heavenly palace, standing at the dome of the sky. Divine light showered down from the dome of the sky, bathing him in the radiance. Like a heavenly emperor, he stated loudly, "Do you know who is the heavenly path?" When everyone heard Ji Wudao's words, their pupils constricted. This was a question that they'd been asking. Everyone knew that this heavenly path had a consciousness, but who exactly was the heavenly path? Was it the remnants of consciousness from the ancient heavenly path or the ancestor of today's world? Since it appeared here, it was most likely the latter. But in that case, whose side would the heavenly path be on? Since the heavenly path could bestow divine items for them to cultivate with, It naturally could also send down destructive power to kill them all and turn this place into Armageddon. Who is the heavenly path? Someone asked. Countless people looked up to the sky. Everyone wanted to know the answer. Who was in charge of the world order right now? Ji Wudao did not answer the question. His eyes looked down, and his gaze penetrated the 99 heavens. At that moment, all cultivators in the 99 heavens could see the supreme figure at the top of the heavens. The same thought appeared in their minds. The heavenly emperor was about to return. The age that belonged to the heaven realm was also about to return. Of course, suppose you are willing to cultivate in the heavenly imperial palace and become a member of the heavenly imperial palace. In that case, you can naturally remain in the 99 heavens and study the heavenly path, Ji Wudao announced, his voice shaking the 99 heavens. The heavenly imperial palace has stayed hidden for many years. Now, we are officially recruiting cultivators to join the heavenly imperial palace. However, I must remind everyone, any cultivators who join the heavenly imperial palace must be governed by our rules and obey the orders of the heavenly imperial palace. Those who only wish to enjoy the cultivation resources but aren't willing to follow orders, I must remind them, traitors or rebels will be punished by the laws of the heaven realm. While Ji Wudao spoke, a line of strong cultivators appeared behind him, hovering in the air. They were all strong cultivators of the heaven realm. Other than the great sky lords Black and White Almighty, for heavenly kings, and the 9 star lords that the world had already seen before, there were many other strong figures. This included some strong figures with extremely high statuses and great Emperor Tebes. They were above the great sky lords Black and White Almighty. Just as Ji Wudao had said, the heaven realm had been a weak force for the past years. They had practically isolated themselves from the world to cultivate and rarely showed themselves in the world. They cared even less about the matters of the 7 realms and focused on cultivating. This low cover has lasted for a few centuries until today. The heavenly path appeared in the heavenly imperial palace, bestowing an opportunity and giving divine items. Ji Wudao entered the great emperor to be plane. He was about to enter the great emperor plane and become a heavenly emperor. The heaven realm was finally coming back to compete with the 7 realms to become the domineering lord. In much of history, the heaven realm had always been the top realm of the world, standing at the peak of the heavens. Ji Wudao was determined to recover the glory of the heaven realm. He would enter the great emperor plane, become the heavenly emperor, lead the heaven realm toward a new golden age, and manage the world order for the heavenly path. The 7 realms, including the original realm, would have to obey the heaven realm's orders. Now, the first thing that the heavenly imperial palace had to do was expand its numbers and attract cultivators of the world to join the heavenly imperial palace. He believed that with the existence of the heavenly path, paired with the divine item, countless people would be willing to join the heavenly imperial palace. He was not worried about traitors either. He was already a great emperor to be, and would soon step into the position of heavenly emperor. Starting the moment of his official enthronement, those who followed him would thrive, those who went against would die, and those who dared to betray him would be killed with no exceptions. In the 99 heavens, countless people looked up to Ji Wudao. A new age was about to arrive. Would the start of the Age of Gods be accompanied by the renaissance of the heaven realm? How could the Age of Gods not have the heaven realm's heavenly imperial palace? Ji Wudao's ambition was finally exposed. How can we join the heavenly imperial palace? An elder asked. After that, many people in the 99 heavens spoke one after another. They all cultivated in different realms, but many people were not directly under the rule of those emperor-level forces. They were able to determine their fate. Now, the rise of the heaven realm was unstoppable. Since Ji Wudao did not care about the 6 emperors and had the heavenly path as his background, people naturally did not mind joining the heavenly imperial palace to cultivate. They already saw the future of the heavenly imperial palace. Its rise was imperative. Futian also looked up at Ji Wudao. This person was also a genius and an extraordinary talent. He had kept low for many years, hiding his ambition, but today, he could no longer hide it. Perhaps, he did not need to hide it anymore. A line of mighty figures appeared below the heavenly palace. Ji Wudao looked at everyone and continued. Those who are willing to cultivate in the heavenly imperial palace come to the 99 heavens. From now on, I will reorganize the heavenly imperial palace and govern the heaven realm. Strong cultivators from all 7 realms gazed at Ji Wudao. Many of them shot into the sky. The lower ones moved first, going toward the 99 heavens. The top figures did not move for now. They seemed to be calculating things. The place right under the heavenly path was undoubtedly the most suitable for cultivation. It was the path of the emperors. If they missed this chance, their chances of becoming an emperor would be much smaller. Thinking of this, how could the strong cultivators pass it up? However, they also had to consider the consequences. If they joined the heavenly imperial palace, they would have to follow Ji Wudao's orders. At that time, if chaos erupted in the 7 realms and there was war, they would not be able to refuse orders to join the war. You had to pay the corresponding price for any benefits you enjoyed. More and more strong cultivators stepped out, gathering toward the space below the heavenly palace. Those were the ones who were willing to cultivate in the heavenly imperial palace. They also had very strong cultivations. The heavenly imperial palace governed the heaven realm. They probably did not even want ordinary people. They would have to go through a selection process. At this time, some top figures stepped forward too. Those who had gone through tribulation started walking towards that side. They needed to cultivate under the heavenly path even more because it contained hope to enter the great emperor plane. Everyone saw a large group of strong cultivators swarm toward that region. They felt speechless inside, but this situation was expected too. It seems that we must leave, the Supreme Sword Lord whispered. Even though Yi Futian was powerful and might not be any weaker than Ji Wudao, this was Ji Wudao's territory, below the heavenly path. Ji Wudao might borrow strength from the heavenly path. In that case, Yi Futian would be at a significant disadvantage if they started fighting. They even thought, shouldn't the 6 emperors be curious that a complete heavenly path appeared here? But they had not appeared. Could it also be due to the existence of this heavenly path? Yes. Yi Futian nodded and said, in that case, let us return. Bring this divine demon diagram away. With that, he looked toward where the divine demon diagram was. Many people were still studying and cultivating it, but Yi Futian said, everyone, this divine demon diagram was given to the original realm by the heavenly path. I will take it away. Hearing his words, many people felt disappointed. It seemed that they lost their cultivation chance. Yi Futian was going to take away the divine demon diagram. The other strong cultivators would take their divine items away from the heaven realm. There would not be a second holy land of cultivation like this. Yi Futian raised a hand and grabbed at the divine demon diagram. A gust of supreme divine power enveloped the divine demon diagram, and then millions of beams of divine light shot out from it. It did not seem to be very easy to take it away. Using his mind, Yi Futian covered the entire diagram with divine power. Then his mind twitched again, and the divine demon diagram vanished from the spot. Yi Futian had put it away in his world. When the strong cultivators saw this, they were all stunned. Yi Futian had collected it with one thought. It was a pity that they would never perceive the divine power of great beasts again. The top figures of other emperor-level forces started copying Yi Futian, moving to collect their divine items. Ji Wudao was only driving them away, making them leave the 99 heavens, but did not stop them from taking away the divine items. Since the heavenly path bestowed these divine items, it naturally belonged to the consciousness of the heavenly path. Even Ji Wudao would probably be unable to go against its will. The divine items disappeared one by one, collected by the great Emperor Tebes. They were prepared to bring them back to cultivate. Clearly, they were unwilling to clash directly with Ji Wudao under the heavenly path. It was already a feat to receive a divine item. The people of the Yi Imperial Palace gathered together, getting ready to leave with Yi Futian. After cultivating here for more than 20 years, they had made great gains. Everyone's levels had improved. Leaving was quite a pity, but the Yi Imperial Palace believed this was not the only path of the emperors. Yi Futian clearly would enter the great emperor realm. At that time, Yi Futian could create a path for them, so the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace were not worried about the future. This was also why they were calmer. Yusheng, Qingyao, I'm leaving now, Yi Futian said to Yu Shang and Yi Qingyao, gazing at the two. Okay. Yu Sheng nodded and did not say anything else. All right, Yi Qingyao also said, nodding in Yi Futian's direction. Then Yi Futian led the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace to leave first. They departed very calmly. This place did not belong to them. After all, it was the Heaven Realm's territory. After Yi Futian's group left, the cultivators of other realms gradually left. However, many strong figures also remained. In fact, there were some great Emperor Tebes who were willing to stay. They wanted to continue cultivating under the heavenly path, though it was unclear whether it was willingly or had no other choice. Could Ji Wudao control them all? However, this had nothing to do with Yi Futian for now. After Yi Futian's group returned to the Yi Imperial Palace in the God's Ruins continent, he took out the divine demonic diagram and had it float above the Yi Imperial Palace. All the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace could study from it. The Demon Clan cultivators originally from the Demon God Mountain were extremely excited when they sensed the auras in the divine demon diagram. This was practically a supreme divine item for them, a true treasure. Third brother, this divine demon diagram will be under your possession from now on, Yi Futian said to Gu Donglu. Okay, Gu Donglu said. He accepted it without complaints. Yi Futian left and went to the steps of the Yi Imperial Palace. Standing before the great pavilion, he gazed at the entire Yi Imperial Palace. Little Condor, Yi Futian called. Instantly, Little Condor flapped its wings in the distance and appeared before Yi Futian in a flash. Boss, what's up? Come with me. Yi Futian turned and went to the cultivation court. Little Condor also followed Yi Futian. Sit. Yi Futian pointed somewhere, and Little Condor sat down, looking at Yi Futian with some confusion. Then Yi Futian sat down across from him. Training his gaze on Little Condor, he opened up his mind. Little Condor immediately understood what Yi Futian was thinking. There was excitement in his eyes, like he was anticipating this very much. A gust of divine power seeped out of Yi Futian's body and enveloped Little Condor's body. Then with the movement of his thoughts, Little Condor's huge body vanished from the spot. There was a boundless void in the world within Yi Futian's body. Little Condor's figure appeared in the void. He flapped his wings, and he studied the world with his eyes. Was this Master's world? It looked like a complete universe. Whoosh! Little Condor flapped his wings, creating a gale of wind. He flew forward in the void. The boundless universe felt deep and mysterious to the Little Condor. Doable. A thought appeared in Yi Futian's mind. He had wondered before if his little heavenly path would be like the heaven realm after it was complete. But what would it be like if it was incomplete like now? Little Condor flew madly, but could not fly out of this void. His wings covered the sky and sun, and his vast eyes stared into the bottomless void. Master, is this the heavenly path that you created? It's at the same level as the heaven realm of the outer realms. I can sense the aura of the path. Little Condor, I want to experiment on you. It might have some risks, so it's okay if you're unwilling. I'll find someone else. Yi Futian's voice streamed in. Little Condor's eyes shone, and he said, Master, of course, I'm willing. As he spoke, excitement glimmered in his eyes. If I succeed, will I be the first demon god in your universe? This was a universe world and heavenly path. He could feel that it was at the same level as the heavenly path in the outer realms. However, it was still evolving. If it reached the final point, would it become the heavenly path itself? In that case, as the first demon beast cultivating under this heavenly path, would he become the #1 pioneering demon? It would be like being the first cultivator since the heavenly path opened up in the world. How could he pass up this chance and give it to someone else? Even though Condor-sama had not read a lot of ancient literature before, he had still heard of many. He wasn't stupid. Okay. Yi Futian nodded. His universe was still evolving and perfecting gradually. With the addition of his experience in the heaven realm, he wanted to put it into practice. In the ancient age of gods, there had been 8 legions below the heavenly path. They represented the heavenly path to govern the world order. These 8 legions were opportunities bestowed by the heavenly path. If you were also extraordinarily talented at cultivating, You could receive the opportunity to manage the world for the heavenly path. Not long ago, the heavenly path in the heaven realm also gifted 8 divine items. This made him thoughtful. He had even seen the 9 dragons' true qi descend from the heavenly path. Ji Wudao had bathed in it, absorbing the 9 dragons' true qi to build his heavenly emperor form. Had the former heavenly emperor of the Deva had such an opportunity before too? All of this made Yi Futian wonder if he could create a batch of top cultivators by developing his own little heavenly path to become the rulers of world law under his heavenly path. Thus, the first thing he did after returning was to immediately have Little Condor try out his world. Little Condor was still flapping his wings and flying in the boundless space. At the same time, the original divine power of the law in the sky fell upon Little Condor. It passed through Little Condor's body in an instant. The huge divine bird bathed under the divine light. Little Condor studied the divine power of order while flying, simultaneously absorbing the power he could comprehend. So comfortable. Little Condor was reveling in it. Was this the divine power of his master's heavenly law? "Give me more," Little Condor said excitedly, looking up. Poof, poof, pow. There was a huge boom, and Little Condor's entire body went numb. He couldn't stop shaking, and many of his extremely sharp feathers fell down too. A burnt smell seemed to come from his body. But soon, an extremely comfortable divine power enveloped him, healing his injuries. Little Condor almost cried out loud. Why was he getting bullied like this? He was the #1 divine demon of this heavenly path. How could he be bullied? After a long while, Yi Futian asked, "How do you feel?" "This heavenly path is not much different from the heavenly path of the heaven realm. Master, I can feel some homology, and I can cultivate here too, but the order of this heavenly path is still a bit lacking. It's not as complete as that heavenly path," Little Condor said, discussing what he felt. "That is indeed so." Yi Futian nodded. The world tree was probably a divine item from the ancient heavenly path, so it connected. The heavenly path of the heaven realm might even be a remnant of the ancient heavenly path. At this time, Yi Futian appeared before Little Condor. "Master," Little Condor called out, "this is your heavenly path. Is there a way for me to become a deity directly and be the first demon emperor of the heavenly path?" Yi Futian shot a look at him. This guy had quite the appetite. He actually wanted to become the first demon emperor without cultivating. "Nice fantasy," Yi Futian said. According to legends, in the ancient times, both divine items and deities were born along with the heavenly path. You're a being from the outer realms. Naturally, you have to cultivate by yourself to reach the path. There should still be shortcuts, right? Condor-sama looked at Yi Futian with pitiful puppy eyes. If they weren't close, Yi Futian would get fooled by his acting. "I can try," Yi Futian said. "Okay." Little Condor's eyes brightened as soon as he heard Yi Futian. He was a bit excited. Was Condor-sama about to become a deity? Was the first demon emperor of the heavenly path going to be born? In the future, Condor-sama wanted to have countless palaces and rule over all the pretty demonesses of the world. Yi Futian glared at him, and then he vanished. Strands of auras flowed through the void, like the aura of the heavenly path origin at the creation of this world. "I will baptize your flesh with the power of the origin of the heavenly law and reshape your divine soul. This way, you can see if you're a better fit for this heavenly path," Yi Futian said. "However, if you reach enlightenment under this heavenly path later but it's incomplete, then your abilities might be a bit restricted in the outside world. If his heavenly path could be completed one day, he could replace the outer world. But if he couldn't, the people who reached enlightenment in the heavenly path within his body would still be restricted in the outside world. However, this was not very important. The outside world didn't have a completed heavenly path either. Other than the current heaven realm, strands of power of heavenly law dropped down onto Little Condor's body. In an instant, Little Bonder bathed in the divine light of the heavenly law. The brilliant light covered the vast space. He enjoyed it quietly, letting his physical body and soul go through the baptism without struggling. Yi Futian watched all of this happen. When the baptism ended, He planned on using the divine power of the law to baptize little Condor's body and soul directly and see if this kind of immersion technique could help him comprehend the cultivation, thus forming his own divine power. This cultivation technique was even more aggressive than the heaven realm's heavenly path sending down divine items. He wanted to quickly create a top figure. In the Yi Imperial Palace, many people started cultivating in isolation after returning. Many others studied the divine demon diagram. "What is the palace lord doing?" someone asked curiously. Yi Futian was weird this time. He went into isolation as soon as he returned without giving any instructions. "Maybe he had some thoughts while in the heaven realm," someone else answered. Everyone nodded. This was the only possibility. After all, it was getting closer and closer to the time foretold by the Buddha of destiny. What would happen if that day really came? No one knew. The cultivators who'd gone to the heaven realm had all left, but a frighteningly large number of cultivators remained to cultivate in the heaven realm, joining the heavenly imperial palace. Despite not having a great emperor, the heavenly imperial palace had become the emperor-level force with the most cultivators in one go. After some time in the Yi imperial palace, Yi Futian's world did not only have little Condor in it anymore. The core figures of the Yi imperial palace all came here to cultivate. The experiment on little Condor had succeeded. Even though the micro-heavenly path was not complete yet, it was already like the heavenly path. Because Yi Futian was the heavenly path, he could bestow some opportunities when people came in to cultivate. Everyone sat cross-legged on different starry worlds. The law of this heavenly path challenged their bodies and souls, making them match perfectly with the power of the law of this world. After the baptism, Yi Futian gave different divine power of the law to other people for them to study. For the Supreme Sword Lord, the law of the sword way fell upon his body, letting him sense the divine power of the law for the micro-heavenly path. Lord Chen bathed in the divine light of the stars. Taoist monk Mu bathed in the divine light of the sun. Yi Futian gave different kinds of opportunities for all of the cultivators. He would also grow with the people of the Yi Imperial Palace as the micro-heavenly path continued to evolve and perfect, becoming more and more suitable for cultivation. In this world, Yi Futian's figure appeared in the empty space. He gazed down below. There was a figure beside him. It was Hua Jieyu. In the ancient times, the heavenly path had the 8 legions below it, Hua Jieyu. After your heavenly path is completed, the strong figures of the Yi Imperial Palace can take their own roles to rule a portion of the heavenly path. You thought of that too? Yi Futian asked, chuckling. Hua Jieyu's idea was the same as his. The heavenly path would naturally be ruled by his people in the future. Taoist monk Mu can govern the sun as the god of the sun. Hua Jieyu spoke calmly. She did not seem to be saying it carelessly. Instead, she was already thinking about the future. Lord Shun can govern the stars as the god of the stars. The people of the demon god mountain can be gods of their own demons, but there also needs to be someone in charge to lead the various tribes of demon gods. It can be third brother. Qing Yuan cultivates the way of life. She can be the god of life. Those of the Four Corners village can protect the heavenly path. You are this confident that the micro-heavenly path can be completed and replace the heavenly path? Yi Futian asked with a smile. Of course. Hua Jieyu nodded. Then you will be the empress of this heavenly path, Yi Futian said, smiling. Everything that his godfather had wished for back then seemed to be within reach now, but he still had not appeared yet. Where was he? What was he planning? There's another problem, Yi Futian continued saying. This micro-heavenly path is continuously evolving and improving, and I can feel that my abilities are getting stronger as well, but I don't know the technique to complete the micro-heavenly path. There is no one I can learn from either. Even the cultivators who had broken the path in the past probably cultivated in ways different than mine. I am going down a special path, so I still haven't found the way to complete the micro-heavenly path. It might take a very long time. After entering the Great Emperor-to-be plane, becoming a great emperor was definite. It just needed time, even if you were immersed under the heavenly path. But it was different for him. He had his own micro-heavenly path. How could he complete himself? Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. He still had not found the answer as of yet. Since you can create such a situation, You will have a solution, Huajiu said. The micro-heavenly path is complete and similar to all the other realms. Normally, evolution takes a long time. I feel that the final micro-heavenly path will be much stronger than the typical Great Emperor. The other Great Emperors won't be able to compare. Yes. Yi Futian nodded. I do think the same for this. It won't be easy to complete it, but once it is complete, it will be above all else, stronger than the average Great Emperor. But what I'm worried about is that before my path is completed, those ancient emperors will have already done it and stepped into the Great Emperor plane, Yi Futian said. After all, those ancient emperors were only repeating the cultivation path again. Now, they had already received such an opportunity. The time it took for them to enter the emperor plane would be much shorter than him. They would reach it before him. What Yi Futian thought indeed became true. Those ancient emperors had already been great emperors countless years ago. After entering the great emperor-to-be plane, becoming a great emperor was the natural next step. Those from the ancient god clans of the divine prefecture were the first to enter the great emperor-to-be plane. Yi Futian's cultivation state in the Yi Imperial Palace was disrupted midway through. An extremely shocking news came from the outside world. It was also terrible news for the Yi Imperial Palace. That day in the Heaven Realm, Ji Wudao had made everyone leave. Only those who joined the Heavenly Imperial Palace could stay to cultivate. But after that, he had an exchange of interest with a group of Great Emperor Tibes. Many Great Emperor Tibes stayed in the 99 Heavens to cultivate. Haoyan the Great was one of them. And while cultivating in the 99 Heavens, the great path of Haoyan the Great's was completed, and he entered the Emperor plane. Allegedly, the heavenly path produced an encouraging sight. The divine light of the great emperor enveloped the 99 heavens, and countless cultivators bathed under the radiance. A new emperor was born in the world. This news swept across the world with terrifying speed, spreading everywhere. Nowadays, the 7 realms and the God's Ruins continent discussed this matter. Other than the 6 emperors, there was now a 7th great emperor. What shocking news this was! Haoyan the Great was a great emperor from ancient times. Though no one knew how strong he had been in the past, his name was extremely domineering. When he became emperor, the world had produced a strange phenomenon. The heavenly path had resonated, and the cultivators of the 99 heavens all felt the divine might. They felt the urge to worship him. At the same time, everyone thought of something else. Earlier in the 99 heavens, Yi Futian had been so domineering, intimidating all of the strong cultivators by himself. Everyone believed that Yi Futian would be enthroned, becoming an unparalleled figure, perhaps have a battle with Donghuang the Great, or even overthrow the position of Donghuang the Great. No one expected that the world would be unpredictable and change so quickly. Haoyan the Great had returned completely, entering the emperor plane. How could he let Yi Futian remain? This prodigy who had stunned the era was facing a desperate situation again. He may very well die in the hands of Haoyan the Great. Perhaps he may never enter the great emperor realm. After Yi Futian heard this news, the Yi Imperial Palace was facing a great enemy. Strong cultivators gradually arrived at the surrounding areas of the Yi Imperial Palace. Some even spied on the movements of the Yi Imperial Palace. That day, beams of divine light shot from the dome of the sky outside the Yi Imperial Palace. Countless people looked up, staring at the descending divine light with shock. Was the great emperor coming? The next moment, under the shocked stares of all the strong cultivators, many golden items descended amidst the beams of divine light. They fell towards the Yi Imperial Palace, descending onto the space above the Yi Imperial Palace. Coffins! Golden coffins descended from the sky, landing in the space above the Yi Imperial Palace and guarding against all directions. A catastrophe was imminent. Since Haoyan the Great became emperor, the news swept across the God's Ruins continent. Many of the cultivators outside the Yi Imperial Palace had all left for temporary refuge. They were worried they would suffer from a disaster like the alliance by the ancient god clans in the past. However, many strong cultivators also stayed. They held a deep faith in the Yi Imperial Palace and chose to remain despite facing a life-or-death crisis. At this time, countless people looked up to the sky. With the Yi Imperial Palace as the center, a dazzling golden divine light shone down in the vast and boundless region. Huge golden coffins hovered in the air, as if they had come to collect the corpses of the Yi imperial palace cultivators. Futian the Great had returned, entering the emperor plane. He would first sacrifice the most monstrous figure of the current world, Yi Futian, to announce his return. The cultivators of the Yi imperial palace all walked out and floated above the Yi imperial palace, looking up at the sky. Boom! There was a huge sound, and the sky and land shook. A hole appeared above the dome in the sky, opening up a vast golden passageway. There was a group of might figures at the other end of the golden passageway. They looked down at the lower sky with intense murderous intent. These people were indeed strong figures from the Futian clan. Futian the Great of their clan had returned together, so they had prospered in connection. The Futian clan was an emperor-level force now. Soon, it would gloriously become one of the top forces of the world. The long-cherished wish that they had yearned for had finally come true. More dazzling divine light showered down from the sky. A peerless figure appeared in the center of the heavenly passageway. He seemed to be in another world, but the cultivators in the lower sky could see him clearly. It was a great emperor. Futian the Great had returned. Returning as a great emperor, his temperament had changed drastically. He was utterly superior and looked down on the world. Merely standing there, he represented the heavens. All beings and lives were below him. Seeing the scene before them, the cultivators of the Yi imperial palace and surrounding areas all felt hopeless. The great emperor's might made them feel powerless. The great emperor Tebes had already been unmatchable in the past, and no one could stop them, let alone a completed great emperor. All great emperors were unparalleled. Even when there had been many great emperors in the ancient age of gods, those who could become great emperors were still those who had reached the peak of the masses. They had already transformed the path and became the world's physical incarnate of the heavenly path. Then they saw the golden coffins shake and drop down from the sky, going straight for the imperial palace. These golden coffins seemed to be unstoppable, carrying incomparable force. Then some figures broke through the sky at the same time. The Supreme Swordlord and his sword were filled with supreme force. He penetrated the sky and stabbed a golden coffin. In another direction, Blind Tai hefted the sky tremor in his hand and slammed into a golden coffin, shattering the wood. Gu Donglu extended a hand, and it sounded like many demon gods roared simultaneously. Frightening divine power started surging, breaking into a coffin. Ling Long was more direct. She stepped into the sky directly and destroyed a coffin with one punch. In almost an instant, the golden coffins that had descended were all forcefully shattered by the people of the Yi imperial palace. The surrounding strong cultivators were all shaken inside. The Yi imperial palace was so strong nowadays. Plus, the strongest of them, Yi Futian and the West Emperor, had not acted yet. But this was also why many people felt even more depressed. They could not imagine what places such a strong Yi imperial palace could reach in the future. However, the great emperor wanted to destroy the Yi imperial palace, forbidding it from reaching its peak. The coffins shattered, but the Futian clan's strong cultivators at the top of the sky were still staring down. Endless brilliant light shone down, and a supreme might dropped down. There were terrifying booms, and the Futian divine seal appeared in the sky. It covered the entire sky and sun, coming toward the god's ruins continent. The sky broke, a huge hole opening up as the divine seal come down from the heavens. The cultivators of the vast lands looked up and could only see the divine seal. It plummeted with extremely frightening destructive divine light as if it wanted to destroy all beings. Countless people's bodies shook. Some tried madly to escape from this region, but the divine seal covered the entire sky. There was nowhere to go. It was like they could only wait hopelessly for death. This was an authentic Futian divine seal. With one blow, it covered the sky and was unstoppable. All beings were about to be shattered under the Futian divine seal. Suddenly, it started raining in that area. A figure shot up against the tide, going toward the Futian divine seal that covered the sky. It was the West Emperor attacking. He stabbed with the raindrop divine sword, and it landed directly on the humongous divine seal. Countless raindrops stabbed toward the divine seal, and marks appeared on it. However, divine light shimmered on the divine seal. It was impenetrable. At the same time, supreme divine might fell upon the West Emperor, pushing him down. He returned to the imperial palace as a beam of light. Kaboom! The horrifying shaking continued. Brilliant light shone down, and many people sprawled onto the ground. Some people whose cultivations weren't enough even let out muffled grunts. It felt like their bodies were about to be broken and crushed. The divine seal contained Futian divine power. At present, the entire heaven was pressing down. One could imagine how terrifying the might was. If this blow fell down, everyone would die, turning to dust. A great emperor could exterminate countless beings with one thought. This wasn't an exaggeration. Is this really it? Many people felt despair. They looked at the impeding Futian divine seal. It seemed right above their heads already and was about to fall down. Some people even closed their eyes, accepting this reality. A terrible storm had swept over, and the might landed on their bodies. They already saw death. Just then, a beam of light appeared in the direction of the imperial palace. The light continued up, and all the imperial palace cultivators looked up toward the light. Bang! There was a terrifying noise, and the heavens shook furiously as if the world was falling apart. The hearts of the strong cultivators beat madly. The terrifying Futian divine seal had actually stopped. A tiny figure appeared under the divine seal, but it was indeed the figure that seemed so minuscule that it pushed up the sky, stopping the divine seal. Countless beams of light shot out, and the huge Futian divine seal cracked from the center. It broke into countless pieces and, paired with the huge boom and countless beams of light, the Futian divine seal fell apart completely. Countless people looked at the white-haired figure in the sky. Their hearts couldn't stop pounding. What just happened? Many people had already closed their eyes in despair. A storm had swept past, and the heavens might actually disappeared. They saw a figure standing at the top of the sky. He was not very big, but he was like a heavenly god, blocking the sky above the imperial palace. He looked up at the sky, gaze penetrating the air and staring straight at Futian the Great outside of this space. This scene was still ingrained in countless people's minds even years later. It was unforgettable. Futian had blocked the attack of a great emperor. Countless people looked at the scene above the sky in shock. Their hearts couldn't stop pounding, especially the cultivators who had closed their eyes at that moment and waited for death hopelessly. Their eyes were filled with shock right now. They had actually missed it. They did not see the instant that Futian had appeared and shattered the Futian divine seal. They heard that above the 99 heavens, Futian had used one finger to hurt the other emperors to be. Countless emperors to be had worked together, but they were all easily defeated by Futian. No one could stop him. It seemed that he had the frightening ability second only to the great emperors. However, the strongest person under the great emperor plane was still under the great emperor plane. Today, it was Futian the Great who had appeared. He was a returned ancient emperor, a true strong figure of the emperor plane who had completed the transformation. This was why all the cultivators had felt such hopelessness. No one thought that Futian could defeat an emperor. They all thought that Futian was the strongest person under the emperor plane, but great emperors were still the most supreme being. This was what the cultivators believed all these years. It had long been rooted in their minds. The 6 emperors ruled the world, and they were the strongest figures of the world. They were emperors. Each of them was a great emperor who ruled their own world. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. In everyone's eyes, the great emperor represented supremacy and being without enemies. This was also why they had felt true despair when the ancient emperor returned and appeared above the imperial palace. They thought they had no chance. But now, they vaguely felt that they had survived a narrow miss. Even though Futian had only blocked one attack and it couldn't prove that he was able to fight with a great emperor already, no matter what, when they saw that white-haired figure push up the sky, everyone felt intense emotions. Perhaps, miracles really could appear and arrive at the imperial palace. That white-haired figure was their belief and their totem. Perhaps it really would be possible? Futian, the god of war. Hot blood flowed through everyone's hearts, transforming into a fierce belief. Everyone's eyes were trained on Yi Futian's figure. They were all anticipating the coming of a miracle. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. Dazzling light still showered down from the dome of the heavens. But the cultivators of the Futian clan in that space were all frozen, seeming as if they had not processed everything yet. Yi Futian had blocked the attack from Futian the Great and shattered the Futian Divine Seal. They could clearly feel how terrifying the Futian Divine Seal was, yet Yi Futian had shattered it. Was Yi Futian just a great emperor to be? Had he gotten some opportunity and already entered the Great Emperor plane? Not yet. Even though they were extremely far away, they could still feel that Yi Futian had not entered the Great Emperor plane yet. He had countered the attack from Futian the Great as an emperor-to-be. Even Futian the Great himself was a bit surprised. He looked down at the sky, his eyes staring at Yi Futian, and he said, "Yi Futian, you would be an extraordinary figure even in the past. If you become a great emperor, you can go against the heavens and path, becoming a great emperor like the demonic lord and Shenjia. Unfortunately, you'll die in my hands today." The last time when the emperors-to-be of the ancient god clan had attacked the Yi imperial palace to destroy Yi Futian, they had claimed that it would be Yi Futian's honor to die in their hands. Clearly, Futian the Great did not think so anymore. It would be meaningless to become a great emperor if Yi Futian was not killed. Yi Futian would enter the great emperor plane one day and would not forgive him. Thus, Yi Futian must be killed. Boom. A supreme might pushed down. It was the might of Futian. All the cultivators in the lower sky felt suffocated. They could not bear the pressure at all. Yi Futian's mind twitched, and instantly, many divine walls appeared in the air. They flew downward, enveloping the vast space. The cultivators in the Yi imperial palace and vast land saw divine walls appear above their heads. They covered the sky and sun, and even in the distance, the divine walls glistening with divine light covered the entire sky. They sealed the people inside as if creating their own world. At the same time, the divine might disappeared. They no longer had to endure the divine might from Futian the Great. Yi Futian had done this so they would not suffer from the fight. "We can't see anymore," some people muttered softly. Even though it was extremely dangerous, many people still wanted to see the fight with their own eyes. But now, they couldn't see anything. Yi Futian had sealed the space. Of course, he was thinking for their own safety. "Can the palace lord fight with a great emperor?" someone asked. Of course, one person answered. Since the rise of the Yi imperial palace, the emperors-to-be at the 99 heavens went down with one blow. So what if it's a great emperor this time? He can definitely hold up a fight. The man spoke with a bright voice as if to give himself more confidence, but in reality, most people were still worried. Could Yi Futian put up a fight against Futian the Great? They would not be able to see it now. Yi Futian took a step outside, crossing straight through the space and appearing outside of that sky. He came to the area that Futian the Great was in. The strong cultivators of the Futian clan all retreated. They feared Yi Futian. The fear was a shadow from the past. They had tried to kill Yi Futian many times and had failed each time. After each time, they had to pay a similar price. 2 ancient god clans had even been wiped out. Futian the Great glanced at Yi Futian. In an instant, all the cultivators of the Futian clan disappeared, vanishing from before Yi Futian, though he did not care. The body of Futian the Great also disappeared. Or maybe it could not be described as disappeared. Instead, he became one with this patch of sky. The law here seemed to have changed too. He looked at the sky. It appeared to be unchanged, but also to have changed. Divine domain of the Great Path. Yi Futian thought. The Great Emperor had already combined the path and had the divine domain of the Great Path. The sky before his eyes now was not the sky from before. It was Futian the Great's divine domain of the Great Path. Futian the Great was the sky. Above the dome of the sky, a face appeared in the air. It was the face of Futian the Great. When this face appeared, countless beams of divine light shone down from the sky. The beams of divine light plummeted simultaneously, blazing toward Yi Futian. He had nowhere to hide within Futian the Great's divine domain. How strong is a great emperor? Futian thought this inside. He had always been wondering what level his micro-heavenly path had reached and what did he lack in comparison to a great emperor. And how strong was a great emperor? Today, he finally knew. Boom, 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 beams of divine light blazed down, hitting Futian's body squarely. Futian did not hide. The horrifying divine power caused his body to fall down, but extreme divine power flowed across his body, fending off the horrific attack. The intense divine light could destroy everything in the world, but it could not shatter Futian's body. His body was no longer a simple body of flesh and blood. The face of Futian the Great stared at Futian in the lower sky. His huge face was one with the sky. It was like the starry sky that great Emperor Ziwei had transformed into. Now, he had turned into the vast heavens, forming the divine domain of the Great Path. This was his universe world. However, his face held cold, murderous intent right now. Futian was actually able to block his attacks as an emperor-to-be. He'd still gotten blasted down to the lower sky, but Futian the Great's attacks didn't hurt him. It was evident how frightening Futian was. How could he still live if Futian became a great emperor? At that time, there would only be death. In the ancient age of gods, there were differences between great emperors. It was just like the difference between various cultivators of any plane. Some people were destined to be extraordinary. An even more terrifying might fell upon Futian's body. This was his divine domain of the Great Path. The Futian divine power was everywhere. Many boundless golden stone pillars appeared at the top of the sky. Each stone pillar was carved with beautiful divine runes, and they glittered. The frightening divine power surged, and the sky was infused with a suffocating pressure. Right then, Futian felt the boundless heaviness. This attack would be even more frightening than the divine light that had plummeted. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. Die. Futian the Great thought, and the stone pillars were hurled down instantly, rushing straight at Futian. Ignoring the distance between them, they arrived in an instant. Futian the Great was the sovereign of his divine domain of the Great Path. All of the energy here was under his control. The lives of cultivators who came here would also be under his control. That horrible might weighed down. Futian's body suddenly enlarged, transforming into an immense and boundless heavenly god. Divine light flowed around his body. He raised his head at the upper sky. The divine light of sun and moon flowed, and the divine power of the sun and moon surged. It blocked the attack for a moment, but it could not stop the stone pillars from dropping. The frightening divine power represented the path of the world here. Suddenly, countless arms appeared on Futian's godlike body. He seemed to have turned into the thousand-armed Buddha. The infinite number of arms lifted at the same time. At that moment, the divine power in his body roared aggressively and flooded into the arms. He cultivated his own micro-heavenly path. His strength came from the world within his body instead of being supplied by the outside world. Futian faced forward and raised his two arms to the sky. Instantly, the hundreds of thousands of arms made the same movement. They slapped at the sky, and the countless arms pushed out a horrifying divine seal at the same time. It was like thousands of Buddhas at once. Boom! There was an earth-shaking sound. The stone pillars that contained Futian divine power blasted down, crashing against the divine seal pushed out by the arms. It produced an extremely frightening shaking sound, as if the heavens were about to crack apart. The divine power contained in Futian's divine seal was the divine power of the world. When it was sent out as the all-heaven Buddha's seal, it was like thousands of worlds were blasted out. The micro-heavenly path was not complete yet, but the divine power it contained was still extremely strong. Bang, bang, bang. The shocking explosive sound spread, and the surrounding space was about to shatter. The endlessly falling stone pillars shattered with the divine seal, shaking the space within millions of miles. However, there were no other cultivators in this divine domain of the Great Path, so no innocent people were harmed. Otherwise, such a terrifying attack was enough to produce a huge disaster. Then a golden diagram appeared in the dome of the sky. The diagram contained an immense number of runes, and each rune contained the power of Futian. Boom! The runes fell down in an endless stream. Each rune carried incredible force. It was like a portion of the heavens fell down. The Futian power gathered into these falling runes, so how terrifying were they? And they were also endless and infinite. The face of Futian the Great was still there. His eyes were cold and indifferent, gleaming murderously. He was the sovereign within the divine domain of the Great Path. He was the heavens. This diagram was the strongest divine technique that he had created. The Futian diagram contained endless murderous intent and could destroy all beings within a divine domain. Futian's thousands of hands attacked again. Countless divine seals flew out. The divine seals crashed against the Futian runes and shattered madly, but the sky was filled with Futian runes. They were endless. If he had to keep attacking using the divine seals from his arms, the result would already be determined. He would lose undoubtedly. With one thought, the space before him twisted, and a horrifying space vortex quickly appeared. The shocking space vortex expanded wildly. The frightening falling runes fell straight into it and then disappeared. Intense sounds streamed out of the space vortex. More and more runes were swallowed into it, causing the space vortex to shake intensely. Divine power poured out of Futian's body. Billions of runes entered the space vortex. That frightening vortex was like a bottomless hole. World-level divine power of the law. Futian the Great looked down at Futian. His eyes were icy. Before, Futian had already displayed super-strong combat abilities and different divine power of the law of the Great Path. Today, he felt it even more deeply in the fight with Futian. Futian studied a different kind of divine power of the law. He had advanced by breaking the path, breaking off his path. The path that he did cultivate was not singular. It seemed to be a complete micro-heavenly path at the world level. If this was the case, then where was the end to Futian's cultivation? How strong would his final form be? If Futian became a great emperor, there would be no future for the rest of them. In the ancient age of gods, people like Futian were the cultivators who competed with the heavens. I cannot let this continue, Futian the Great thought. While the Futian diagram continued attacking, the figure of Futian the Great directly transformed into the Great Path in the dome of the sky. He became one with the sky. The sky transformed into his body. Or rather, his body had transformed into the sky. Futian felt the supreme might. He looked up to the heavens. Futian the Great had already transformed into the sky, and this kind of force was huge. No matter how he enlarged his body, he would still be like an ant before the sky and seem extremely insignificant. Above the sky, the humongous Futian the Great extended his arm and grabbed toward Futian below him. Futian the Great had transformed into the sky, so his arm was the sky's arm. It covered the entire space, and there was nowhere to hide when it came down. Every direction was within reach of the palm. Futian wouldn't be able to escape from this huge handprint even if he used enhanced agility. There were huge, frightening booms, and the heavenly handprint grew closer and closer. The sky above Futian's head was pitch black, blocked by that heavenly handprint. If he got caught by that huge hand, he would probably be like the size of an ant. He didn't know if the other could even squeeze him when the hand clenched. Futian stood there calmly, not trying to dodge. The Futian Great Palm Seal covered the entire air, coming down at him. Frightening divine power flowed across Futian's body. His body seemed to be made out of divine power. It released incredible divine light that pierced one's eyes. Under that divine glow, Futian's body moved. He dove straight at the huge palm that was grabbing at him. The Futian Great Palm Seal contained immense Futian divine power. The might was enough to collapse the sky and land and send Great Emperor Tebes sprawling to the ground, unable to resist. But under this extreme Futian might, Futian actually went up against it. He transformed into a streak of light and rushed directly toward the Futian Great Palm Seal. The Futian Great Palm Seal landed, blasting onto Futian's body. However, Futian's body transformed into light that went into the humongous palm seal. He broke it apart from the middle, stabbing in and going upward until he penetrated it. A gaping hole appeared in the Futian Great Palm Seal. It was a hole broken by Futian's body of way. Right then, Yi Futian's figure appeared on the Haotian Great Palm Seal, standing on the back of the hand. As the Haotian Great Palm Seal continued to move, his silvery hair danced in the wind, and his white robes flapped. Haotian the Great, transformed into the sky, stared at Yi Futian and asked, "What divine power is this?" At this point of the battle, he naturally realized that Yi Futian had broken the path and created many types of divine power. These divine powers were different from all of the cultivators he'd seen before who'd broken the path. Yi Futian was the path itself and could transform his body into the path at any time. Even though he was a great emperor-to-be, his combat ability was already comparable to that of a great emperor. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. His great emperor-to-be plane was still incomplete, but his divine power was strong enough to match a great emperor's divine power. He naturally understood what this meant. It meant that the level of Yi Futian's divine power was higher than his. He just had a lower plane. How frightening would he be if Yi Futian's divine power was completed one day and his plane caught up? It was unimaginable. At least, he would definitely not be Yi Futian's match. He might be like the extraordinary ancient great emperors who had fought against the heavens and path. He did not think that in this life, he could personally witness a junior appear with this talent and even be his enemy. Yi Futian did not answer Haotian the Great's question. He looked up at that huge face. At that moment, he suddenly had confidence. They had not truly exchanged blows before, so he was unclear about his own abilities. He only knew that great emperors-to-be were not their match at all. This had already been proved before, especially in the 20-some years cultivating in the 99 heavens. His micro-heavenly path had been evolving, and he was getting stronger. He'd even studied super-strong divine power. It turned out that he could already fight with great emperors now. He'd always known that his cultivation was special. After breaking the path, he'd created the micro-heavenly path, creating his own world, but he did not think he would be this strong. Before him was a great emperor returned from the past. He had not recovered to his optimal state, but he had still reached completion, returning as a great emperor. He was not at a disadvantage even before such a strong figure. This meant that he could battle with great emperors already. This is all a great emperor is? Yi Futian looked up at the sky and uttered with an extremely arrogant voice. His long silver hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked extraordinary. In the span of a thought, an infinite number of divine swords appeared in the air. Every sword was pointed at the dome of the sky and radiated with frightening divine power. Haotian the Great felt the extremely powerful divine power and grew somber. The swords formed by divine power circled Yi Futian and increased in number, resonating with Yi Futian's body. Go! Yi Futian's mind twitched, and the countless divine swords attacked simultaneously. Every sword was formed by heaven-slaying divine power. Humph! Haotian the Great huffed coldly. Countless divine seals fell from the dome of the sky. They radiated brilliantly and attacked the incoming divine swords. They were also infinite and blocked all of the divine swords. Bang! The first divine sword clashed against a divine seal and emitted a horrifying bang. The entire space shook violently. Under Haotian the Great's shocked stare, his Haotian divine seal actually shattered. The divine sword stabbed through it. Yet the frightening swords of heaven slaying divine power were still charging towards him, about to pierce the sky that he had transformed into. Even though Haotian the Great knew that the divine power that Yi Futian studied had a higher class than his Haotian divine power, he never imagined that his attack would break the Haotian divine seal so easily. He was a great emperor, and yet his divine seal had collapsed under the attack of a great emperor-to-be. There was a muffled sound. The divine seals that filled the air rained down endlessly, almost burying the entire land. The divine swords pierced seal after seal as if they were infinite and could never reach the end. Yi Futian still stood on the back of the great Haotian palm. The hand waved, and the divine power of space flooded out instantly as if creating a space passageway. Then the divine swords flowed into it. In an instant, the heaven-slaying swords appeared at the top of the sky, going for that portion of the sky. That portion of the sky had been formed by Haotian the Great. If Yi Futian wanted to defeat Haotian the Great, He had to forcefully break open the sky. The divine swords arrived, blasting against the sky. There were many horrifying sounds that shook the heavens. That part of the sky also trembled, but Futian remained. He did not shatter. This was the great path divine domain of a great emperor. It had been formed by Futian divine power and was incredibly sturdy. Even the heaven-slaying swords could not break it apart. They only made the sky shake. The space within the divine domain also trembled violently. The huge eyes of Futian the Great continued to stare at Futian. His eyes were countless times bigger than Futian. This is all a great emperor is? Futian the Great stared at Futian, but still unshakable by you. Futian looked up at that huge face. An unmatchable storm whipped up around his body. That moment, the great path divine power in his body exploded fiercely. Futian's body enlarged instantly. His hay continued growing, 100 zhong, 10,000, and 100 zhong. While his body skyrocketed, his divine power also strengthened madly. The divine power of his micro-heavenly path fused into the godlike body, transforming into every part of this body, entering his limbs, bones, and internal organs. Even his head became extremely sharp, containing heaven-slaying intent. Bang! With a huge sound, Futian stepped on that palm, finally shattering the palm seal. At the same time, Futian's immensely huge body shot straight into the sky. Everything in his path was destroyed. The Futian divine seals and divine light all turned to dust and ashes under the godlike great path body, as if no type of power could stop him right now. Was a great emperor truly unshakable? Divine technique, heaven slay. The heaven-slaying divine technique this time exploded with heaven-slaying divine power. Futian had transformed into the path, and his entire body was made up of different divine power. Even though he continued to use the previous name of heaven-slaying divine sword, it was completely different. It was more than a few levels more advanced. This was a true heaven-slaying divine technique. It could destroy a portion of the sky. In the sky, Futian the Great had a grave expression. His huge and boundless hand left from the sky, transforming into a huge Futian divine seal. Merely the divine seal's light contained the power to destroy the world. It repressed and shattered every being in the world. This was the attack from Futian. A god would block and kill a god. The two extremely shocking attacks crossed and crashed in the air. The world instantly cracked, and even the air was about to explode. That destructive storm swept through the entire divine domain of the Great Path. Even more shocking was that the great palm seal that represented Futian shattered. The heaven-slaying divine sword formed by Futian stabbed through the Futian divine seal, causing it to crumble and turn to dust. Carrying supreme divine light, the heaven-slaying divine sword continued upward. Instantly, it passed through everything, blasting into the dome of the heavens. Thud! The sky produced a frightening sound. Transformed into the sky, the face of Futian the Great changed. This attack that carried divine power seemed to have been prepared for him. It could pass through the sky. Futian had created the heaven-slaying divine power after years of experiments in his micro-heavenly path. He added many types of power of the law and finally produced heaven-slaying strength. If his micro-heavenly path were completed, the heaven-slaying divine power would improve, and he would be able to destroy a part of the sky with one thought. Right then, it hit the sky formed by Futian the Great, and cracks appeared in this part of the sky. Frightening divine light appeared from every crack, and some places even showed signs of collapse. And right now, Futian's attack still had not stopped. The heaven-slaying divine sword he had transformed into blasted onto the sky. There were still countless divine swords nearby that kept going up, hitting the places that had cracked. Countless heaven-slaying divine swords stabbed into the sky, wanting to break it apart and penetrate the sky. Boom! Countless beams of piercing divine light burst out. A gust of supreme Futian divine power shattered the surrounding divine swords. Futian's body also had to bear the supreme might. The next moment, Futian disappeared from this space. The world returned to how it had been before. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. A beam of divine light from Futian's body shot straight toward the dome of the sky, going towards the outer sky. His figure appeared there, looming in place. He stared above his head. Futian the Great had appeared there. However, Futian the Great no longer had the arrogant attitude from before. When he looked at Futian, he carried cold, murderous intent and a tinge of fear. Futian was not a great emperor yet, but he was already able to threaten him, almost breaking apart the Futian and destroying the divine domain of the Great Path. He realized that he did not have to wait. The current Futian was already a threat, and it was difficult for Futian the Great to kill him. What's wrong? Cultivators of the ancient Futian clan stared at the two figures in the sky. Futian was not dead. Futian the Great could not kill him. What was going on? They were not the only ones. The space passageway was still there. Some cultivators near the Yi Imperial Palace in the God's Ruins continent had not gotten locked up hurried over from afar. They also looked toward the other end of the passageway. At the top of the vast sky, they saw the white-haired figure standing in the heavens, facing the great emperor. He looked unaffected. At that moment, countless people clenched their fists and had excited expressions. Divine light flowed across Futian's body. Even though there was a great distance between them, they could still feel his powerful might. He had not gotten killed. His aura was still as before. He hadn't gotten seriously hurt. What did this mean? Futian the Great could not bring down Futian. He was already able to fight against a great emperor. He could be known as a god because of this battle. The current Futian could fight with a great emperor already. This would become the disaster of the Futian clan. The current Futian could fight a great emperor. If Futian the Great could not kill Futian today, one could imagine what would happen in the future. After this, Futian the Great would be even less of a match. He was already a returned great emperor, while Futian could continue advancing. Between the two, Futian would only become stronger as time passed. Old God. Futian looked up at Futian the Great and said, "Your ending is my beginning." That utterance proved everyone's guesses even more. The strong cultivators of the Futian clan had come with extreme confidence to witness the return of their great emperor and kill Futian and the Yi Imperial Palace. But right now, they felt cold shivers all over and felt fear. This was an extreme difference in emotions. After countless years of waiting, they finally welcomed the return of their great emperor. The ancient god clan had become an emperor-level force, and they hoped to go toward the peak, becoming one of the strongest forces in the world. Today, they came to the Yi Imperial Palace to kill Futian. They wanted to use Futian's blood as a sacrifice to announce the return of Futian the Great and the rise of the ancient god clan. But instead, this was the result. Futian the Great could not kill Futian. Futian even arrogantly said, "Your ending is my beginning." Futian the Great was silent. He did not respond to Futian's words. He had pushed the Futian divine power to its max in the previous exchange, but he still could not kill Futian. In fact, his Futian was almost broken apart by Futian. Countless cracks had appeared. He was more apparent than anyone about what this meant. If they continued fighting, he would not even have the upper hand, let alone be able to kill Futian. "Go," Futian the Great uttered. Then he waved his hand, sweeping all the strong cultivators of the Futian clan, and left this space. Instantly, the might in the air dissipated. Futian the Great and the cultivators of the Futian clan had disappeared, leaving this place. Futian looked at the disappeared figures, feeling a bit surprised. He did not think Futian the Great would be decisive and give up directly. Futian the Great could not kill him this time, which meant that there would be less hope in the future. Killing him would only be harder. Going downward, Futian returned to the Yi Imperial Palace. The space vortex had disappeared, and everything returned to normal. Futian waved his hand, and the restrictive forces surrounding the vast territory of the Yi Imperial Palace disappeared. All the strong figures appeared on the ground. When they saw Futian's figure, their hearts pounded in extreme shock. He was okay. Futian was all right. They had already given up hope earlier, but the skies had cleared. This meant that Futian's current abilities were already enough to fight with a great emperor. From now on, who could touch the Yi Imperial Palace? They couldn't help but think of the Buddha of Destiny's prediction. Perhaps Yi Futian really would be able to defeat Donghuang the Great when the time was up. Palace Lord, the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace all called out. Many people had expressions of reverence. Some Yi Imperial Palace disciples in the Renhuang Plain had very fanatic gazes. Their palace lord, Yi Futian, was already able to fight with a great emperor. This meant that Yi Futian was comparable to great emperors. The Yi Imperial Palace counted as a true emperor-level force now. After Yi Futian landed, Hua Jieyu, Gu Donglu, and the others surrounded him. Zhuge Mingyu asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Yi Futian answered, smiling. "Hao Yan the Great can't defeat me anymore," so he retreated. Even if he continued fighting, he wouldn't be able to succeed. Leaving is the wisest choice. Zhuge Mingyue had a bright smile in her eyes. She seemed very calm, but there were deep emotions within. The youngest little brother from the past was now standing at such a height already. He would soon reach the top and stand at the pinnacle of the world. He didn't kill you so that he will die in the future. I think he left to wait for the others to reach the great emperor plane, Zhuge Mingyue analyzed. After all, they're all great emperors from the ancient times, and not very far from the great emperor plane. Hao Yan the Great took the step first, but the others will become great emperors too. By then, they will unite and come together, just like last time. Yes. Yi Futian nodded. He wondered if he should visit the divine prefecture and wipe out those ancient god clans to avoid future threats. "Let's return first," Yi Futian said. Everyone nodded, and they all returned to the Yi Imperial Palace. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. This time had been dangerous, but not damaging. Even Yi Futian did not know what level his actual combat abilities were, let alone them. They did not expect that he could fight against a great emperor already. It was naturally a pleasant surprise. Even Yi Futian had lost count of how many times the force he led had gone through life-or-death threats all these years. They had been extremely passive during each crisis and had to borrow all types of power in order to survive. Now, he had finally reached this step. In the future, it would be rare for others to threaten him. Yi Futian's group returned to the Yi Imperial Palace. Outside, countless cultivators traveled to the Yi Imperial Palace. When they arrived outside the palace, it was like an extremely pious pilgrimage. The original realm finally had a being comparable to the great emperors. News of the battle between Hao Yan the Great and Yi Futian swept through all of the forces, reaching the enormous emperor-level forces with the fastest speed. Those emperor-level forces all stayed silent and did not release any sound, but everyone knew that there must be a shockwave going through all the emperor-level forces now. All the realms shook violently from this as well. Back then, when the God's Ruins continent had appeared, the Buddha of Destiny had foretold the coming of the Age of Gods. After that, the portion of Heavenly Path appeared, and great emperors really did return. But who would have thought that the first great emperor who had returned in public would be countered by Yi Futian after going to kill him with an unstoppable force and leave in defeat? Everyone knew what this meant. An entirely new era was beginning now. This would be the preamble to the start of the Age of Gods. The seven realms and original realm would usher in a new era, the Great Age of Gods. Perhaps there would even be Godslayer. Yi Futian could already force back Hao Yan the Great. What was next? It was not impossible for him to kill a great emperor. In the Devil Imperial Palace of the Devil World, the Devil Emperor heard the report, and his eyes had a deep look. His gaze pierced the void, looking into the distance. Yi Futian had not yet become a great emperor, but he had fought with one and made Hao Yan the Great leave in defeat. The micro-heavenly path that he had created was unordinary. This made him suspect what Yi Futian's identity really was. Who was the one that he'd raised? "Keep an eye on the Yi Imperial Palace," the Devil Emperor ordered coldly. Yes. The person nodded and then retreated. The Devil Emperor's eyes were frightening. The times were changing. What would the future era be like? In the Dark Court, the Dark Sovereign also received the news, but he was quite happy. Yi Futian could already fight against Hao Yan the Great. This meant that he would pose a significant threat to Donghuang the Great. At the same time, the human realm, empty divine realm, Heaven Realm, and Donghuang Imperial Palace of the Divine Prefecture all had different reactions. However, Yi Futian himself did not know about any of this. The battle made him realize he could fight against a great emperor, and he was quite happy, but this happiness only lasted a short while. After that, he continued cultivating in isolation, bringing all the core figures into his micro-heavenly path to cultivate. He had a sense of urgency. This battle was enough to spread his name across the world, and the 6 emperors would pay more attention to him. This kind of reputation wasn't necessarily a good thing. He would get more attention. In the 7 realms, it was clear that he did not have any real friends. Yu Shang and Yi Qingyao had not fully grasped control yet. They couldn't represent the Devil Realm or Dark World. Thus, he had to become stronger. He would only be a bit safer if, one day, none of the 6 emperors could threaten to defeat him. The 6 emperors had been emperors for many years, and it was all in the era after the heavenly path collapsed. Yi Futian guessed that their abilities were above that of Futian the Great. Thus, he didn't dare to get careless. Under the micro-heavenly path, everyone bathed in the divine light of the law, comprehending and cultivating. They improved speedily. Cultivating in Yi Futian's micro-heavenly path was cheating. It was like the 8 legions in ancient times. The heavenly path bestowed the power of the law to them directly, letting them rule the law of the world. However, this micro-heavenly path had been created by Yi Futian himself. He was qualified to cheat. He represented the heavenly path. Of course, other than that, they still had to feel for themselves. The 8 legions under the heavenly path back then had all been chosen because they possessed the extraordinary talent to be the representatives of the heavenly path in the world. Right then, Yi Futian's figure appeared in the vast void. He could see the entire world and, naturally, also saw the cultivation statuses of the Yi Imperial Palace members. Still too slow, Yi Futian murmured. The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace were not untalented. They could be said to be very strong, and all had had great opportunities later. However, their cultivation times were still too short. Time, Yi Futian murmured. Whether it was him or the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace, they all needed time. In any world, time was constant, but in a different world, time might be different. When he cultivated in the spirit mountain of Western Heaven, he had seen it recorded in the Buddhist scriptures that time had been the same when different Buddhas cultivated in a different world. There was also the stance that time was not real. It did not exist and had been made up. Time itself was an empty concept. Even though people had different sense of time in different situations, he thought about this problem early on. He was the ruler of this heavenly path, so could he control the time of this micro-heavenly path too? Yi Futian sank deep into his own thoughts. Everything in the world was in his mind, operating according to their own law. He sensed everything operating while studying the passage of time. The thousands of operations became more apparent. The concept of time seemed to be clearer too. In the Buddhist scriptures, Buddhas cultivated in different worlds, and some worlds, one day would pass while 1 year would have passed in another world. His micro-heavenly path was a world different from the outside world. Time was just a created concept. It reflected the operations of everything in the world and was also law under the heavenly path. It was just more abstract. In reality, the concept of time had not yet developed in his micro-heavenly path. It was still calculated according to the time in the outside world. If I change the operations of all beings in the micro-heavenly path, then will this world be different from the outside world? Yi Futian thought. He was entirely in the state of pondering, immersed in it. Under his thoughts, some slight changes appeared in how all beings in the world operated. He also focused on the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace. They did not realize this. Everything in the world was relative. When you were in a world, and only the laws of one being's operation changed, you would be able to catch it quickly. But if everything in the world changed simultaneously, it would be like nothing had changed. When a man moved, they could easily feel that they were moving. But if the land carried him along as it moved, then he would be still. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace were all immersed in their cultivation, and no one discovered any changes. Their abilities also kept improving. Bathed in the law of the micro-heavenly path, their changes were dramatic. They improved every day, and as time passed, there were gradually more and more near deities in the Yi Imperial Palace. They started studying their own world and even created their own divine powers. Of course, this was also under the micro-heavenly path, just like the cultivators under the ancient heavenly path. Even if they followed the heavenly path and became great emperors, they would still be under the heavenly path and unable to break free from it. That day, Yi Futian was still studying when he saw Gu Donglu raise his head in one part of the world. "Little brother," he called out softly. Yi Futian's figure appeared before him as soon as he finished speaking. Clearly, Gu Donglu knew that Yi Futian was aware of everything in this world. So he called out directly, and Yi Futian appeared as expected. "Third brother," Yi Futian said with a smile, walking towards Gu Donglu. "Did you run into problems in your cultivation?" "Yes." Gu Donglu nodded. "Little brother, how is your cultivation? When can the micro-heavenly path can be completed?" "Not sure." Yi Futian nodded. The great Emperor Tebes in the outside world was once great emperors, so it's easy for them to return to the great emperor plane. It's not too hard for other great Emperor Tebes either, but my cultivation is a bit unique. It seems to be a bit different from everyone, and I still haven't found the specific way to become emperor. I can only continue to perfect the micro-heavenly path until it becomes complete itself. Little brother, you're already able to fight with great emperors as a great emperor-to-be plane. Of course, your cultivation is different from the others. Otherwise, what's the point for the rest of us? This is quite expected. Because your cultivation is special, becoming an emperor might differ from the others. It will be harder, Gu Donglu said. This micro-heavenly path is already very similar to the heavenly path world of the heaven realm. This is a complete heavenly path world. If it becomes perfect, then you can even replace the heavenly path. Thus, this road will not be simple. Have you thought about this before? Yes. Yi Futian nodded. I felt this, which is why I have a sense of urgency. In the last battle, you could already fight against Futian the Great, Gu Donglu said. You'll only become stronger and stronger. You're already not that different from a great emperor. If you're complete, then it will be rare for you to have an enemy in the world. It's naturally difficult. Nowadays, I have already figured out my divine power, but it was with your help. Even though this can help me cultivate more quickly, I won't have an advantage if I encounter a great emperor in the outside world. Brother, what do you mean? Yi Futian had a confused expression. Break the path, Gu Donglu said. Even if you reach enlightenment and completion in the future, my limit will still be a great emperor under your heavenly path and possibly be comparable to Futian the Great. Gu Donglu wanted to try his road and figure out his path. Even though I was quite successful in breaking my path, it's still an extremely dangerous method. You might head towards the point of no return, Yi Futian said. Cultivating under my heavenly path, becoming emperor is only a matter of time. But breaking the path to cultivate might be a dead end. Even if you succeed, there are still dangers. Third brother, have you thought clearly? I know. Gu Donglu nodded. Okay, in that case, I support you. Yi Futian did not discourage him. Gu Donglu had always had his own opinions and was also proud. Fulfilling his path and becoming a great emperor with Yi Futian's help was easy, but it was not what he wanted in cultivation. Plus, seeing that his little brother had created his own micro-heavenly path, he naturally wanted to take a step further as well and forge his own road. It doesn't seem to be far from the end of the 500-year emperor fate of Donghuang the Great, Gu Donglu said. I don't know what will be of the foretelling of the Buddha of destiny. The outside world is probably all waiting right now. Let's go out to see, Yi Futian said. With a thought, Gu Donglio's body disappeared. In the Yi Imperial Palace, all of the strong figures were still busy with their cultivations. Not everyone had entered Yi Futian's micro-heavenly path, only the core figures. The two walked to the top of the steps outside the Yi Imperial Palace's Grand Pavilion. There were guards there who had very strong cultivators. Palace Lord, Third Sir. The guards bowed in greeting when they saw Yi Futian arrive. How is the outside world? Yi Futian asked. In these countless months, a lot of information about Palace Lords spread through the outside world, the guard replied. In the Divine Prefecture, The few ancient god clans have an even tighter alliance now. It's said that some of the ancient emperors cultivated together. They're worried that you will go kill them. Countless months? Gu Donglu asked with a surprised expression. Yes, it has been half a year since Palace Lord defeated Futian the Great, the guard said. Gu Donglu was stunned at his words. He seemed to realize something and turned to gaze at Futian. Had he misperceived the change in time? There was only one explanation, because it was Futian's micro-heavenly path. The law of time changed. Futian transmitted his voice to Gu Donglu. Gu Donglu's heart trembled. In the time he felt, nearly 6 years had left. He had indeed been cultivating during all those years. Futian was already able to change the time in the micro-heavenly path. Futian changed the laws of the world of the micro-heavenly path, causing the latter's time to be different from that of the outside world. It was around 10 times faster. A day outside was around 10 days in the world of the micro-heavenly path. Hence, while half a year had passed in the outside world, almost 6 years had passed inside. For cultivators with high cultivation planes, this was naturally extremely beneficial. If they were just in an independent space that was part of this world, it would be meaningless no matter how they changed the time. However, because the world of the micro-heavenly path was not part of their reality, they had more time to cultivate. 1. For the members of Yi Imperial Palace, this was undoubtedly very advantageous for them. They could use this time to cultivate. It was also possible that they could continue to magnify such a change. For now, it was around 10 times. As Futian's plane grew, he might be able to create an even more significant disparity. If he could one day make a day in the outside world be a year in the world of the micro-heavenly path, how terrifying would that be? Of course, the benefit of such a time difference was relative. That would not necessarily be a good thing for a mortal with a limited lifespan. The outside world would change every day, and the great emperor-to-be figures would gradually reach the imperial realm. Their cultivation would match that of ancient times, returning to levels once absent from the world for many years. However, all of this had nothing to do with the members of Yi Imperial Palace. Futian and Gu Donglu continued with their cultivation. Gu Donglu severed his path and cultivated, while Futian comprehended the power of the law of time. The latter wanted to understand how to control the law of the great path of time. He wondered whether he could utilize it as an attack in combat. In the Divine Prefecture, countless cultivators were gathered on a mountain in the Taishang domain. In the distance, terrifying divine tribulations gradually dissipated. On the Divine Mountain, a peerless figure stood erect. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. It was an elder. He was dressed in modest clothes. However, right now, an astonishing emperor's might emanated from his figure. Before this, many people did not know that the Taishang domain had such a powerful existence. The latter had ascended to the imperial realm. Congratulations, senior, for reaching the imperial realm, a voice called out. Taishang domain chief had come in person to offer his congratulations. He bowed respectfully towards the elder. The elder swept a glance at him. His gaze was actually very sharp. He took a deep breath and then looked up at the sky. He closed his eyes and sensed the aura in the surrounding space. He seemed to be indulging in it. He had finally returned. During the ancient era, he had already proven his way and was granted the title of Tai Yi. He was one of the top 10 sword gods of the divine domain, Tai Yi sword god. During the collapse of the heavenly path, he had merged into his sword spirit and thus escaped the calamity. After countless decades of waiting, he finally encountered the rejuvenation of the heavenly path. The chance for him to prove his way had come, and he successfully reached the imperial realm once again. The surrounding cultivators all had their eyes on him. He stood casually on the divine mountain, yet he looked as sharp as a divine sword. Right at this moment, the wind howled, and the clouds churned. The sky opened up, and a space passageway appeared. At the other end of it stood an illusory figure. When the crowd saw this figure, they bowed and greeted, "Greetings, Your Highness." The person was none other than Donghuang the Great, the ruler of the Divine Prefecture. "Senior, congratulations for proving your way and reaching the imperial realm. Donghuang the Great said with a smile as he stood at the other end of the space passageway. He sounded sincere. Tai Sword God cast a glance at the passageway with an indifferent gaze. The current world was very different from that of the past. There were merely 6 great emperors dominating the world now. Compared to the glorious situation during the Age of the Gods, the current era could be described as pathetic. Donghuang the Great had also known of the existence of Tai Sword God. Many years ago, the former had invited the latter to cultivate in Donghuang Imperial Palace. However, Tai Sword God turned down his offer. Now, Donghuang the Great extended him the invitation once again, saying, "I have invited Senior to cultivate in Imperial Palace before this. Now that you have proven your way at the Imperial Realm, would you join us? We can explore different cultivation methods together. Currently, there are a few cultivators in the palace who will soon prove their ways." All right, Tai Sword God agreed to his request decisively. Then, he entered the space passageway. In the blink of an eye, he arrived inside Donghuang Imperial Palace. Donghuang the Great showed himself and personally welcomed Tai Sword God. A few great emperors-to-be came forward to congratulate him too. Yet another great emperor has appeared in the divine prefecture. The cultivation world is fortunate to welcome the return of the Age of the Gods, Donghuang the Great said, beaming. Tai Sword God did not respond to that. His facial expression remained indifferent throughout. He looked at Donghuang the Great and said, "Donghuang Imperial Palace should have gathered many divine items over the years. Your collection should contain many divine techniques and secrets of the cultivation world. Where are they now?" Since the 6 great emperors ruled over the entire world, the best stuff, including the divine items, would undoubtedly be in their collections. Tai Sword God had just rejoined the Imperial Realm. He needed to strengthen himself so that his power could develop further. The surrounding cultivators frowned when they heard his question. They stopped smiling and appeared irritated. Donghuang the Great invited him over. He had just arrived, and he straight up asked about the divine items. He seemed to have no respect for all of them here. "The divine techniques are in my Imperial Palace. If you want to cultivate them, you can follow me in," Donghuang the Great replied calmly. He was not angered by the other party's rude behavior. His excellent temperament was well exemplified. "Give all of them to me. Besides that, prepare a separate palace for me. Order your men to find me the finest divine items on earth," Tai Sword God commanded. His voice was arrogant, and he spoke as though he was superior to Donghuang the Great. During ancient times, he was the most exceptional sword god. In his opinion, the current great emperors could not hold a candle to him. Even the well-mannered Donghuang the Great couldn't help but reveal an annoyed expression when he heard this. He said, "It is good news to the world that the Age of the Gods is coming. I invited you here to cultivate together and learn from each other. However, what you said has crossed the line." Tai Sword God swept a glance at Donghuang the Great. Tai sword seemed to shoot out from his eyes and entered into the eyes of Donghuang the Great. At the same time, the palace was surrounded by endless sword will. With a shift of his will, Tai Sword God could make the divine swords descend upon the palace and flatten this place. "You are a junior. How dare you disrespect a predecessor god?" chided Tai Sword God with a cold voice. Donghuang the Great's gaze similarly turned as sharp as a sword. He looked at Tai Sword God, and an invisible divine power immediately burst forth and enveloped the vast space. The whole world seemed to have come to a halt when his majestic divine power erupted. The divine swords floating in midair shook violently. Then, they plummeted to the ground uncontrollably. The facial expression of Tai Sword God changed drastically. He sensed that he could no longer control his own divine power. Time seemed to have frozen. He was actually suppressed by the divine power of the other party. As a great emperor from ancient times, he had always looked down on the current great emperors. From his point of view, they were merely fortunate cultivators who managed to prove their way during the collapse of the heavenly path. Their paths were incomplete. They paled into insignificance when compared to the predecessor gods. However, at this very moment, the divine power emanated by Donghuang the Great subverted his belief. From the looks of it, even though the great paths during the Age of the Gods were perfect, there were many scum *gs2 Donghuang the Great commented. Then, he pointed his finger forward. His revelation divine power surged forward and pierced through the body of Tai Sword God. Divine power was stirred up around Tai Sword God's body as he unleashed his power to its limit. Nevertheless, both his divine power and his divine body turned into dust instantly. He was completely wiped off the face of the earth. The death of Tai Sword God did not cause too great a stir. The members of the divine prefecture merely knew that a new great emperor had been born. He had then been accepted by Donghuang the Great into Donghuang Imperial Palace. Who would have imagined that Tai Sword God would be so arrogant and supercilious? He acted as though he was the true master of the divine prefecture. This angered Donghuang the Great, who immediately killed Tai Sword God. The latter was the first great emperor who perished after the world began to change. His death could be considered to be tragic. However, he was only reaping what he sowed. He believed himself to be an ancient emperor figure and acted very arrogantly, looking down on the current great emperors. He misjudged the ability of the recent great emperors and was crushed by one of them, unable to put up a fight at all. This battle also allowed the members of Donghuang Imperial Palace to witness the ability of Donghuang the Great. Essentially, even they had never seen Donghuang the Great fight. After the chaotic era ended, the divine prefecture was unified, and the various worlds returned to a time of peace and order. Ever since then, Donghuang the Great had never needed to fight. After many years, this was the only time he had fought. With the flick of his finger, he had slaughtered an ancient emperor. Compared to 5 centuries ago, it was apparent that Donghuang the Great's ability was much more powerful now. Nevertheless, the emperor-level forces had caught wind of the news. They had their spies monitoring the movements of the various forces in secret. It was impossible for them not to hear of such a massive incident in Donghuang Imperial Palace. Currently, Futian was still cultivating in the Imperial Palace. Inside the world of the micro-heavenly path, the space was vast. Futian wielded a spear materialized from his divine power. Then, he sent out strike after strike. There were 100 million of his duplicates exercising the same technique simultaneously in the same space. All of them comprehended this spear technique at the same time. This scene was undoubtedly shocking for any onlooker. Like cultivating heaven-slaying divine sword, Futian comprehended the spear technique by stabbing out countless spears in tandem. His strike count reached an astronomical number in a single day. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. Time flew by. They were unaware of time passing while they were cultivating. In the blink of an eye, a few years had passed in the world of the micro-heavenly path. Futian became more skillful in his spear technique. Each time he struck, fewer and fewer spears appeared. Finally, one day, only one spear appeared when he attacked. When he thrust the spear forward, his body transformed into an illusory figure. It was as though he never truly existed in this space. However, his spear stabbed into one of the stars. Dong! A dull thud sounded. Time and space began to warp as a terrifying storm crushed the star into dust. Its debris was sucked into the twisted time and space. Futian retreated as he witnessed the star collapsing and being destroyed. When he saw that it was consumed instantly, he could sense his heart beating fast. He was astonished by his own power. Since he started cultivating the law of time and space, he aimed to create an even more powerful attack. He intended to merge his comprehension of the law in his divine technique. From the looks of it, he had succeeded in doing so. Although his new attack was still in the testing phase, the might that it unleashed was already very frightening. If he continued perfecting it, it would surely become even stronger. If I forge a spear with the divine power of heaven slaying and charge it up with the law of time and space before attacking, what kind of might would it unleash? Futian thought to himself. His ability had leveled up after he comprehended the law of time and space. As a result, this world of the micro-heavenly path was better constructed. He had improved much compared to when he fought Futian the Great. He was far from perfect, but he improved consistently. It was as though there was no plateau in his cultivation journey, and he could always become stronger. However, The law of the great path that he created was derived from his own world. He was unsure whether his law was applicable in the outside world when his micro-heavenly path reached perfection and became a major heavenly path. He had never altered time or space directly. If he reached the level where he could directly alter time or space, he could not imagine how powerful he would be. Even now, Yi Futian had a feeling that he could defeat Haoyan the Great. Yi Futian's consciousness enveloped this space. He had achieved admirable improvement in these few years. He had a better understanding of the law of time. He was able to catalyze time in this space to a greater extent. Therefore, even though he had spent a few years inside this world, not much time had passed in the real world. If he continued cultivating like this, the time difference between the outside world and this space would only grow larger. Due to having extra time inside this place, he kept improving nonstop. In the process of improving, he could widen the time difference even further. This was an endless cycle. Third elder brother has comprehended the path, mumbled Yi Futian as he looked over in the direction of Gu Donglu with a smile. Gu Donglu had comprehended his own divine law power. After severing his path and cultivation, he reforged it and comprehended its law. This was a metamorphosis. Although there was no huge change to his cultivation plane, he had more potential to tap into along this path. Lord Qin, Blind Tai, and many others had reached the near-deity plane. They were all pushing to reach the great emperor-to-be plane. In the future, in this world of the micro-heavenly path, with his help and the advantage of time, all the cultivators of Yi Imperial Palace could cultivate at a rapid pace and chase up to the top cultivators in the outside world. Whether they could walk the path of the emperor depended on their comprehension and luck. Yi Futian could help them, but he could not directly create great emperors. Right then, Yi Futian's will shifted, and his figure vanished. In the cultivation court of Yi Imperial Palace, Yi Futian opened his eyes. His figure flashed and disappeared from his original spot. When he appeared once again, he saw that many cultivators had come. Palace Lord Yi, someone called out to Yi Futian. They were cultivators from the devil world. Yu Sheng was present, as well as Yin Gi and the others. The people here were all cultivators who had reached the great emperor-to-be plane. There were even 2 great emperor figures from the devil world among them. Their figures emanated menacing auras. By just casually standing there, they gave off terrifying pressure. Yi Futian stood there and could easily sense all this. However, he was already someone who could forge a micro-heavenly path. Significant emperor figures could no longer pose a threat to him. The 2 devil emperor-level figures had a look of curiosity in their eyes. Before this, they had heard rumors that even though Yi Futian had yet to reach the imperial realm, he had caused Haoyan the Great to flee in defeat. How exactly had this white-haired youth managed to do so? They even wanted to test Yi Futian to see how he fought against a great emperor. From the looks of it, there are old monstrous ancient emperors in each world, and they have all gradually returned, Yi Futian thought to himself. He was also very curious. During the collapse of the heavenly path, the various gods had perished. How did this happen to all of them? From the looks of it, they had encountered a great calamity. However, not all of them had died. Many great emperors had been waiting for the opportunity to return once again. After the world had undergone a huge change, they began to re-emerge. The divine prefecture, the human realm, and the devil world had such figures. In another location, there were also cultivators from the dark world. They similarly had imperial realm figures in their midst. Lord Shaman was also among their numbers. Lord Shaman, who had reached the great emperor-to-be plane, still had a very menacing aura. He was already on the path of the emperor and on track to become a great emperor in the future. Yu Sheng, Yi Futian shouted. He asked, "Why have you come to Yi Imperial Palace?" The cultivators of the devil world and the dark world came together. This was not for Yu Sheng's personal matters. This was the will of 2 emperor-level forces. Yu Sheng had not come looking for Yi Futian alone. If so, what were they here for? Yu Sheng looked at Yi Futian and said over transmitted thoughts, "Devil Emperor wants you to head to the Divine Prefecture and deal with Haoyan the Great and the others. In the meantime, he will make a trip to Dongwang Imperial Palace." When Yi Futian heard Yu Sheng's thoughts, he revealed a strange look. What was the Devil Emperor planning? Was the Devil Emperor testing Yi Futian? Or was the former using him to kill others, using his hands to deal with a great emperor figure of the divine prefecture, and paving the way for the former's battle against Donghuang the Great several years later? After all, it wouldn't be long until the end of Donghuang the Great's 500 years of fate of the emperor. The Dark World would also participate. The Devil Emperor would head over to Donghuang Imperial Palace to meet Donghuang the Great. This was done to make it convenient for Yi Futian to act. The Devil Emperor intended for Donghuang the Great to be unable to interfere. Dark Sovereign knows that Palace Lord Yi has deep grudges with the ancient god clans of the Divine Prefecture. Hence, he wanted us to accompany you to the Divine Prefecture to seek revenge, Yin Gi said as he looked toward Yi Futian. Palace Lord Yi, are you confident that you can kill Futian the Great and the others? Yin Gi was the top demon sage of the Devil World and had extremely high standing. His abilities were also super powerful. Nevertheless, he had to refer to Yi Futian as Palace Lord Yi now. Even though Yin Gi had already reached the Great Emperor to be plain, Yi Futian could defeat Great Emperors. Yi Futian glanced at the cultivators of the two major forces. From the looks of it, he did not have a choice. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. Moreover, they had come to support him in seeking revenge. I don't know, replied Yi Futian. After all, they are great emperors. However, if all of you are willing to lend a hand, I believe there won't be any problems. Yin Gi said, we are heading over to provide support. Everything else will still depend on Palace Lord Yi. In the meantime, His Highness Devil Emperor will head over to Donghuang Imperial Palace and chat with Donghuang the Great to stall for you. They would not participate in his battles. This was a matter between Yi Futian and the major ancient god clans of the Divine Prefecture. All right, Yi Futian said as he nodded. Since His Highness Devil Emperor is willing to lend me a hand, how can I possibly turn down his kindness? However, I do not know how things will end. If my abilities are lacking, I will still need your help. Rest assured, Palace Lord Yi, answered Yin Gi as he nodded his head. Since you have agreed, shall we head out immediately? Responded Yi Futian as he nodded his head. He informed the members of Yi Imperial Palace and then immediately left with the cultivators of the two emperor-level forces. Although Yi Futian already planned to seek revenge, being escorted over was not how he imagined it. Was the Devil Emperor hoping that Yi Futian would directly wage war against the Divine Prefecture? The group left the Ruins continent and descended upon the Divine Prefecture. They headed straight toward the Futian clan in the Nantian domain. According to their sources, the remnants of the ancient god clans were all there. They had gathered together over there to prevent Yi Futian from seeking revenge against them. After all, Yi Futian could already put up a fight against Futian the Great. They had to be cautious. While they were going to the Divine Prefecture, Donghuang the Great was cultivating in Donghuang Imperial Palace. A divine palace was erected amidst the churning clouds. The figure of Donghuang the Great could be seen sitting in front of the palace, surrounded by misty clouds. He opened his eyes and revealed a profound expression. Then, he laughed softly and said, after a few centuries, the Devil Emperor has actually personally come over again. Your visit has caught me by surprise. Last time, you came to my Devil Imperial Palace, yet you left without stopping for a visit. I have come today to reciprocate your courtesy. A voice sounded, followed by clouds shifting in the sky. An elder appeared. He stood casually with his hands behind his back. He slowly walked toward Donghuang the Great. He seemed like an ordinary old man. No one would have guessed that he was the domineering Devil Emperor who ruled over all corners of the Devil World. The Devil Emperor referred to the incident where the Devil World captured Donghuang Diuan. At that time, Donghuang the Great made a trip to Devil Imperial Palace to bring her back. Take a seat, Donghuang the Great said as he gestured. He sounded very courteous when he invited the Devil Emperor to sit in front of him, as though the two of them were long-lost friends. The Devil Emperor did not turn down the offer either. He sat near Donghuang the Great. The latter waved his hand, and a weiqi board popped up between the two of them. He said, Your Highness, since you have come, why don't we have a match? All right. The Devil Emperor nodded in agreement as he shifted his attention towards the board. Your Highness is the guest. You may go first, Donghuang the Great said as he gestured. The Devil Emperor took a white stone and put it on the board. At the same time, he said, Donghuang, do you have news of my brother? Donghuang the Great shook his head. As he placed a black stone on the board, he replied, just like you. I have not received any news about him for a long time. Is that so? The Devil Emperor followed up with another white stone. His tone was laced with suspicion. It's absolutely true, Donghuang the Great replied. He sounded earnest, seemingly not hiding anything from the other party. Who set up the heavenly path in the heavenly emperor realm? The Devil Emperor did not pester Donghuang the Great on the same issue. Instead, he moved on to another issue and asked about the heavenly path that pressured the heaven realm. Your Highness, what do you think? Donghuang the Great raised his head and glanced at the Devil Emperor. He answered with another question. If I knew the answer, I wouldn't have asked, the Devil Emperor said with a smile. He sounded casual as he brought up yet another topic, saying, in the past, when the goddess of the heaven realm first showed her face to the world, no one could hold a candle to her beauty and ability, let alone ladies. There were very few men in the world who could put up a fight with her. She was also the dream girl for countless men. Donghuang the Great revealed a brilliant smile. His eyes glistened with gentleness as he mumbled, she was the best among all women. The Devil Emperor smiled and continued, you are admirable. Such a talented lady actually became your wife. She was also willing to give you a descendant. Donghuang the Great's gaze turned mellow as he commented with a smile. She played a big part in helping Yi Qing and me to become great emperors. As the person with the most outstanding temperament at that time, you were indeed the only person who was a good match for her. Both of you made an admirable couple. Therefore, surely you have a lot of pent-up hatred. As the Devil Emperor said this, he did not forget to place a stone on the Weiqi board. He looked up at Donghuang the Great, wanting to observe the other party's expression. However, Donghuang the Great's expression was normal, seemingly unchanged. He still wore a gentle expression. These are all things of the past. Why do you bring them up? Could it be that you came over to talk about these matters? Asked Donghuang the Great. If outsiders heard their conversation, they would truly believe that the two of them were best friends casually having a chat. Just as the two of them were talking in Donghuang Imperial Palace, Yi Futian's group arrived at the territory of the Haotian clan in the Nantian domain. Haotian city trembled violently. Back then, Yi Futian had slaughtered his way here before. Later on, Haotian the Great had tried to take revenge when he became a great emperor, but he had been unable to destroy Yi Imperial Palace. Today, Yi Futian had descended upon the city once again. Terrifying pressure enveloped Haotian city. The Haotian clan naturally felt this pressure. Faced with such pressure, countless cultivators in the city felt like worshipping the powerful cultivator who emanated it. Although Yi Futian had yet to become a great emperor, his might was comparable to one. The cultivators in the Haotian clan all raised their heads to stare at the figure above. Yi Futian stood in the high heavens like a god. Haotian the Great, Heavenly Emperor Jiang, and the others also appeared in the sky. The remaining four major ancient god clans had allied. Haotian the Great was the first to attain a breakthrough and reach the imperial realm. Therefore, Heavenly Emperor Jiang, Yuanshi the Great, and Wuliang the Great had gathered here, out of the fear that Yi Futian would visit their ancient god clans to eradicate them. In reality, it had not been long since their last battle. However, he had been cultivating for a long time now due to Yi Futian's unique law of time. Aside from Haotian the Great, only Yuanshi the Great had become a great emperor. The other two were still one step away from proving their ways. They remained as great emperors to be. They planned to attack Yi Imperial Palace after all four of them had regained their status as great emperors. They would have a better chance of killing Yi Futian then. In their opinion, Yi Futian improved at a faster rate than them, but with the combined power of four great emperors, they were confident that they could slay him. Unfortunately, they had not expected Yi Futian to be capable of changing the speed of time in his world of the micro-heavenly path. Actually, the longer they spent making preparations, the less advantageous they were. The cultivators of the devil world and the dark world are here too. What are they doing here? Thought the cultivators of the Haotian clan as they looked at Yushang and the others. Futian the Great asked right away. This territory is part of the Divine Prefecture. For the cultivators of Devil Imperial Palace and the Dark Court to come here, do you plan to trigger a war among the three worlds? Currently, the situation was chaotic everywhere. Even though the various parties had yet to declare war on each other, it was rather provocative for the cultivators of the Devil World and the Dark World to appear here. Futian the Great naturally had to drag Donghuang Imperial Palace into this mess. Otherwise, the Futian clan would not withstand three significant forces on their own. We're just here to spectate the fight, Lord Shaman from the Dark Court replied. The Dark Court had no intention of joining the battle. Before this, Lord Shaman was greatly shocked when he heard that Futian could force a great emperor to retreat. In the past, he had intended to kill Futian. Now, Futian had actually surpassed him. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. On the other hand, he still remained at the Great Emperor-to-be plane. You're here to spectate the fight? Futian the Great mumbled as he relaxed slightly. There were quite a few returning ancient great emperors among the lineup of the other party. If they declared war on the ancient god clans, the latter would lose miserably. Since they were only here as spectators, Futian the Great was still confident that he and Yuanshi the Great could take Futian head-on. They might even be able to kill him now. Futian the Great did not believe that Futian had improved much in such a short amount of time since they last met. In the heavens above, Futian took a step forward. The other cultivators appeared in different spots in the sky, but they stayed clear of the battlefield. Futian lowered his head to glance at the Futian clan. A glance from him was enough to make the cultivators of the Futian clan feel as though a blazing sun had appeared above their heads. The sun shone down on them and radiated the brilliant divine power of the sun everywhere the sunlight covered. The space was set ablaze as the temperature rose. Endless currents of divine fire flowed in space. Many cultivators sensed that their spiritual souls would be crushed under the scorching heat. Their souls would be burnt to ashes. Bang! Yuanshi the Great's will shifted, and a terrifying divine matrix instantly appeared above Futian City. This divine matrix was filled with a destructive aura similar to the force of divine punishment of the heavenly path. The divine power of the sun rained down and was negated by the divine matrix. It could not penetrate the latter. Futian glanced at Yuanshi the Great. He obviously had noticed that the other party was now a great emperor. The current Futian clan had two returning great emperors. Yet, Futian was not afraid. He could already put up a fight against Futian the Great back then. After cultivating for several years, his micro-heavenly path had evolved, and his various attributes had grown much more powerful than before. His divine power has grown stronger. Futian the Great told Yuanshi the Great over transmitted thoughts when he detected the might of the divine power of the sun. Its menacing power covered the divine matrix. Although the former was being negated by the latter, it still was threatening. The divine power of the sun was not Futian's strongest divine power. It was a power he could casually unleash from his gaze. I will trap him, then we can kill him together, Futian the Great continued. His will shifted, and he immediately transformed into the god of Futian. The vast space became his world as his will enveloped the entire city. All the cultivators were within his domain. Beneath the Futian divine domain, Futian the Great's figure disappeared. He merged with the vast space and appeared above Futian. Yuanshi the Great's will shifted, and an unparalleled destructive storm immediately surged out from the divine matrix that he forged. Countless beams of divine light shot up into the sky. They shot up towards where Futian was. Each aura contained frightening destructive power. Futian's figure formed a phantasm. It was a divine body. Back then, he self-proclaimed it as the divine body of the heavenly path. Now, he had created the micro-heavenly path, making it a true divine body of the heavenly path. It was immovable. The divine power landed on the divine body but could not cause it any harm. Yuanshi the Great formed divine seals with his hands. A gigantic silhouette of a Tiantian instantly appeared in the sky and covered his figure. Similar to Futian, this was also his phantasm. When it appeared, the storm also moved with it. As the silhouette grew larger, the surrounding storm became even more terrifying. The hearts of all the cultivators of Futian city were trembling. They stood within the city, feeling like ants. These great emperors could turn them all to dust by extending a finger. These were great emperors. They were true Tiantians, existences who stood at the peak. Right now, Yuanshi the Great had a significant impact on them. He was like a deity who governed the divine punishments of the world and who could judge sinners. The divine matrix contained the power of divine punishment. The menacing force of divine punishment covered the vast space and directly enveloped Yi Futian. Right now, it was as though Yi Futian was in the eye of a destructive storm. The storm rampaged, and the power of divine punishment was constantly brewing. "Die!" uttered the divine silhouette formed by Yuanshi the Great. Murderous intent filled the skies as the destructive storm gathered where Yi Futian was standing. It was as though the force of divine punishment from the heavenly path had descended to destroy all of existence. Around Yi Futian's figure, countless beads appeared. The beads then formed spheres that circled him. They coalesced from the divine power of the world that he had released from his body. Each bead was an independent space that had coalesced into a sphere and orbited his figure, blocking off the destructive, massacring power. The menacing, massacring power rampaged towards him and collided with the beads. A sharp screech filled the air. The space seemed to be torn to shreds as destructive bands of light swept out. The spheres were being ripped apart gradually. It appeared that the divine power of the world was still insufficient to block the attack of a returning ancient emperor. At the same time, Futian the Great also struck downwards. A menacing Futian Madra came charging down, descending upon Yi Futian's defenses. The cracks in his defenses immediately expanded. Yi Futian stood still as he sensed all this. His hands swept across his surroundings. Time and space seemed to be distorted. The rampaging storm flowed into the warped space and disappeared without a trace. Is this an application of the divine force of space? Someone thought out loud. All the surrounding cultivators were staring at the battle between Yi Futian and the two great emperors. Divine power circled him. His defensive power was extremely terrifying. It appeared to be the divine power of the world. As for the warped storm that was now unleashing divine light, it seemed to be a powerful application of the divine force of space. As the two great emperors, Futian the Great and Yuanshi the Great, unleashed a combined attack, the absolute defense forged from the divine power of the world was shattered. Countless beams of the divine light of the heavenly penalty shot towards Yi Futian's figure. Yet, they were consumed by the storm. It was as though a chaotic current of time and space had formed around Yi Futian's figure. This chaotic current was like a black hole. It was extremely terrifying. Yuanshi the Great pointed a finger to the sky. Even more menacing might burst forth from the divine matrix. Endless attacks surged towards Yi Futian, burying the area where he stood. Futian the Great did not stand by idly. He similarly attacked. Countless Futian divine seals crashed down, attempting to shatter the divine power around Yi Futian. Yi Futian's figure was buried. The cultivators from the outside world could no longer detect him. They could only see the endless attacks as well as the warped storm that circled Yi Futian's body. The cultivators in Futian City felt their hearts racing. They did not expect to witness a god-level battle today. This was a war among great emperors. Two great emperors besieged Yi Futian to kill him. Even though Yi Futian had yet to become a great emperor, he was already comparable to one in terms of ability. Therefore, he could be counted as one of them. The terrifying destructive might and the endless attacks did not stand a chance when faced with the distorted space and were consumed by the latter. The spatial storm grew larger and covered this part of the sky. The attacks from the two great emperors failed to penetrate it. What kind of defense is this? Thought Yin Gi as he observed the fight. He was astonished. As the top demon sage in the devil world, he was arrogant. Nevertheless, he paid close attention to Yi Futian's development since the latter visited Devil Imperial Palace. Yi Futian's improvement surpassed Yin Gi's imagination and had reached a shocking stage. Yi Futian's defense alone was sufficient to put the two great emperors in a predicament. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. His attack will be as powerful as his defense, Yusheng commented. He seemed to have a lot of confidence in Futian. Futian always paid attention to both his defense and offense to cover all grounds. Now, he was focused on withstanding the attacks of the two great emperors. Once he found a chance to retaliate, it was hard to say whether Futian the Great and Yuanshi the Great would be able to hold out against his attack. Very far away from the Nantian domain where Futian City was, Donghuang the Great and the Devil Emperor were in Donghuang Imperial Palace, the most revered place in the Divine Prefecture. They were still seated in front of the Weiqi board. However, Donghuang the Great had activated a passageway. There was an image inside it. The image was of the battle happening in the Futian clan now. It seemed like no fight in the Divine Prefecture could go unnoticed if Donghuang the Great truly wanted to find out. Donghuang, what do you think? The Devil Emperor asked as he looked at Donghuang the Great, who sat across from him. Donghuang the Great replied, he severed his path in order to attain greater cultivation. He can go toe-to-toe with two ancient emperors, even though he is only at the Great Emperor to be plain. He has created many unique divine powers. He is exceptional. Can he defeat you? The Devil Emperor inquired further. As he asked, his gaze was fixed on the side profile of the other party. He was interested to see how Donghuang the Great would respond to him. Donghuang the Great observed the battle as he acknowledged, he is capable of defeating me. The Devil Emperor narrowed his eyes. Then, he laughed and said, Donghuang, you are crowned the top all-rounder in the world. You are unparalleled and are a one-in-a-million genius. You actually acknowledge that someone is better than you and a junior at that. Donghuang the Great responded, the heavens and the earth welcome major changes, and the age of the gods will soon come again. It's not surprising that some monstrous figures have risen. I proved my way and now rule over the Divine Prefecture. However, my achievements are possible only because we live in the current era. During ancient times, there were countless exceptional figures beneath the heavenly path. I am nothing compared to them. The Devil Emperor smiled as he looked at the other party. He praised, you might not be the strongest in this current world, but you are the only one that I admire. He continued, however, as the heir of Emperor Yi Qing, he will seek you out to take revenge. Since you believe he might surpass you, why do you still let him leave? Why don't you nip this thread in the bud? He was curious as to how Donghuang the Great would respond. If that is the case, what difference is there between this era and the previous era? Asked Donghuang the Great as he also revealed a smile. He looked at the Devil Emperor and said, if he truly stands before me one day, I wouldn't mind surrendering the world to him. When the Devil Emperor heard Donghuang the Great's response, he stared at the former with his jet-black eyes. He seemed to be judging how much of what Donghuang the Great said was true. In your opinion, who will win this battle? The Devil Emperor continued asking. Donghuang the Great looked towards the battlefield and said, Yi Futian. I think so too, replied the Devil Emperor with a smile, as he also turned to look at the battlefield. Right now, on the battlefield, the attacks of the two great emperors still could not break through Yi Futian's defenses. Futian the Great's gaze was as cold as ice. In the sky above, a Futian great palm grabbed out at Yi Futian. He was attempting to crush the space with his gigantic palm. When Yuanshi the Great saw this scene, he ceased attacking. He watched the great palm that blocked out the sky attentively. Under the watch of countless gazes, the great palm came down and grabbed at where Yi Futian stood. When it landed, the warped storm actually crumbled it gradually. The gigantic great palm shattered and was frenziedly swept into the storm. What kind of divine power is this? Wondered the top figures of the devil world and the dark world. Their hearts trembled violently as they witnessed this shocking scene unfold before their eyes. The Futian great palm crumbled frenziedly, and the falling pieces were sucked into the storm. The speed of consumption was astonishing. When the great palm entered into the region of the swirling space, the crowd noticed that time flowed differently in that space. Nevertheless, the great palm still managed to crush the swirling storm as it was sucked into the latter due to its enormous size. The distorted space was similarly collapsing. Both attacks disintegrated. Right at this moment, a beam of divine light flashed. A figure appeared amidst the raging storm. He was none other than Yi Futian. He transformed into a beam of light. With a spear in his hand, he freed himself from the besiegement and charged forward. His speed was incredulously fast. In an instant, he appeared in front of Yuanshi the Great. The spear in Yi Futian's hand stabbed out. For a figure at his level, he could attack even across vast distances. However, Yi Futian chose to fight in close quarters. As the spear stabbed out, Yuanshi the Great saw the tip of the spear warp space and time, just like the defensive power around Yi Futian's figure. However, this time, it was used to attack instead. Yuanshi the Great had already proven his way and reached the Great Emperor plane. Yet, against such an attack, his heart seemed to stop beating. The entire world fell silent, and he sensed an absolute threat. This attack could kill him. A blinding divine light dazzled, and Yuanshi the Great transformed himself. His entire person was integrated into the heavenly penalty divine matrix, which resembled a divine diagram of destruction. The destructive power that erupted from it shrouded the entire Futian divine domain. Yi Futian came down with a spear and stabbed it into the divine matrix. In an instant, with the spear's tip as the center, an unparalleled terrifying hurricane formed. Time and space seemed distorted as an ominous boom was heard. The divine matrix disintegrated and collapsed as it was caught in the hurricane. The power of that one point instantly spread all over this space. All the destructive forces around it were sucked inside and torn to shreds. The collapsed divine matrix was still capable of launching unprecedented destructive attacks at Yi Futian. However, Yi Futian was tucked within the distorted storm of time and space, so the attacks could not get close to him. All the cultivators watched what took place in front of them in utter shock. All of this happened in a second. That boundless and massive divine matrix was swallowed up in a blink of an eye. The cultivators in the imperial realm felt the power of that blow and watched intently at the center of the vortex. They felt that the time and space there seemed to be chaotic and completely different from those inside the Futian divine domain. This strike contained the force of time and space. What kind of power of law had he comprehended? Bang! A loud boom was heard as the gigantic divine matrix was shattered. Someone was seen escaping from that space in a bit of humiliated fashion. It turned out to be Yuanshi the Great. He returned to his former standing countless years ago as a peak existence by proving his way to the imperial realm. But he never expected that he would end up in such an embarrassing state by a youngster. Ach! A great emperor had just spat up blood because of a single blow. This was enough to make everyone in the ancient god clan tremble. All of them watched that white-haired man in horror. He was already so powerful. Likewise, Futian the Great's heart was beating wildly. He already felt that he might not shake Yi Futian an inch, while the man could still threaten him and Yuanshi the Great with his attacks. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. At this time, Yi Futian's divine body was blooming with a dazzling divine light as divine power circulated all around him, turning into numerous long spears. Each spear contained incomparably fantastic power. Countless spears gathered together and surrounded Yi Futian. His eyes were so cold, as there was a murderous intent within them. With a single thought, the spears broke through the air and attacked Futian the Great and Yuanshi the Great at the same time, and the place below where the Futian clan was located. Boom! Yuanshi the Great could not afford to be careless. He had been injured already. At this moment, he gathered the divine power to transform. Infinite divine light surrounded him as if he was the deity in charge of the heavenly penalty. The divine power gathered into the sword of heavenly penalty, which was massive and humongous. Now, it lanced forward. Infinite heavenly penalty divine light roared at the same time and lashed out, colliding with the long spear that came in for the kill. Immediately, there was pure pandemonium between heaven and earth. Futian the Great blasted out the infinite handprints as well, which collided with those long spears. Futian handprints crumbled and shattered like mad upon impact. The attacks from Futian the Great no longer seemed as powerful as Yi Futian's. It was not until the gigantic Futian handprint appeared that it finally blocked the spear attacks. However, Futian clan was not so lucky. The terrifying long spear directly broke through the defensive power created by the Great Emperor and continued the attacks there. The two great emperors-to-be were not enough anymore. and it was apparent they could not stop the onslaught. Futian the Great's thought moved slightly, and the entire Futian clan was immediately covered by the vast sky. It seemed as if there was a canopy that had fallen, blocking Futian's spear attacks. Futian raised his head and looked up. A massive spear appeared before him as he slammed both hands forward. Suddenly, a gigantic long spear ripped through the space and blasted towards the other side. As another shocking boom came out, the defense collapsed, and countless destructive lightning struck down. In an instant, the vast and boundless Futian clan was attacked. It seemed as if the apocalypse was upon them. It was the fire of anger that came from the gods themselves. Bang, bang, bang. Countless structures vanished into smokes and ashes. Many cultivators from the Futian clan didn't even have a chance to let out their screams before they were immolated. Those who were hit by the divine power vanished instantly, leaving no traces behind. This time, the cultivators of the ancient god clan had gathered inside the Futian clan. This blow inflicted heavy casualties. Futian did not mean to show any mercy. Back then, what kind of misery did the ancient god clan inflict upon Futian? After repeated joint attacks and suppression, they went to the imperial palace to destroy it. Therefore, Futian did not have the slightest sympathy for the ancient god clan now. Those who survived looked up in desperation at the man who hovered above the sky. The ancient god clan, 2 great emperors, and the 2 great emperors-to-be could not take down Futian and were hunted by him instead. Once upon a time, Futian was just a genius talent from the original realm, someone that the ancient god clan had never taken seriously. Many years ago, the city lord of Tianyan City wiped out the Heavenly Mandate Academy with just a single blow. At that time, they looked at Futian as if they were looking at some insect. None of the clan lords from the ancient god clan saw Futian as a serious threat. But today, when they regarded Futian once again, he was like a god. Heavenly Emperor Jiang and Wuliang the Great had not yet completed their enlightenment, and they were incredibly shocked at this moment. They did not expect that as part of the 4 ancient emperors, they would be oppressed by a youngster to such a degree. Times, indeed, had changed. Futian still wanted to continue as he gathered up his divine power. However, at this time, a mighty coercion descended. This divine power directly penetrated the Futian divine domain and invaded this space. Then a voice said, "Enough?" When Futian felt this divine power, he raised his head and looked up into the sky. He saw countless divine lights descending, penetrating the Futian divine domain. The voice was from Donghuang the Great. In a very distant place, he saw Donghuang the Great there. It seemed as if he had opened up a passageway. The last time he was here, the people from the divine prefecture stopped him. This time, he came because of the invitation from the Devil World and the Dark World. The Devil Emperor himself was also coming to Donghuang Imperial Palace. Even so, did Donghuang the Great still intend on stopping them? The Devil Emperor was also there. Futian saw the Devil Emperor. "Your Majesty, Futian the Great has repeatedly tried to invade the Imperial Palace," Futian said as he looked up into the sky. He could feel that the divine power from Donghuang the Great was very strong. "Go back," Donghuang the Great commanded. The divine power from Futian's body roared wildly. Donghuang the Great gave a cold snort as the divine power from the firmament submerged the space here. At this moment, Futian felt his divine power was unable to separate from his body because everything was being suppressed to the extreme. Under the might of this divine power, his strength was being suppressed irrevocably. This strong? Futian thought to himself as streaks of divine light submerged his body. The hearts of Futian the Great and Yuanshi the Great also palpitated. They didn't know that Donghuang the Great was this strong. The Futian divine domain was pierced completely. Although they had proven the way, it seemed that they were not at all on the same level as Donghuang the Great. In Donghuang Imperial Palace, the Devil Emperor stared at Donghuang the Great, who was making his move. His eyes were deep and unfathomable. No one could tell what he was thinking. At this time, Donghuang was still sitting opposite of him, but he was facing the position of the passage. Separated by the boundless space, the revelation divine power descended regardless of distance or space. This kind of ability had far exceeded the understanding of ordinary cultivators in Futian City. In the land of the Divine Prefecture, countless cultivators were believers in Donghuang the Great. However, they had never seen Donghuang the Great make a move until today. With a single thought, Donghuang the Great had made his divine power descend across the vast and boundless space. This power suppressed Yi Futian, who had defeated Futian the Great and Yuanshi the Great. This suppression was so complete that Yi Futian could not fight back. Only then did everyone realize how truly terrifying the master of the Divine Prefecture was. Yi Futian's divine power roared fiercely upon him. He raised his head to look at the sky, his body stubbornly moving upward against the momentum despite being under the suppression of the revelation divine power. He seemed unyielding. He wanted to see how powerful Donghuang the Great was. Buzz, an even more terrifying divine, might pressed downward as endless divine glory sprinkled down from the firmament. Futian divine domain was suppressed to the point of disappearing altogether, as Yi Futian's body was forced to fall from the sky. His divine power was being suppressed around his body. Yi Futian looked at Donghuang the Great across the distance only to hear Donghuang the Great say, "Until you can come to the imperial palace and stand in front of me, you may not roam and rampage in the Divine Prefecture." When his voice faded, countless paths came rushing down. Yi Futian grunted, and his face paled. He felt his divine body was being suppressed as his body fell from the air again. He had no way to contend with his opponent at all. He had cultivated to the current state and created his own micro-heavenly path, which was enough to shake the great emperors. Among the two great emperors, Yuanshi the Great was wounded. Futian the Great couldn't do much to him. If he continued the fight, he felt his advantage would only grow. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. But even so, he couldn't stop the suppression from Donghuang the Great's divine power. Today, the 6 beings standing at the top of the world were more powerful than he imagined. "Very well, I will be looking forward to that day," Yi Futian responded and retracted his divine power. He understood that he was only in the realm of Emperor-to-be, which accounted for the gap between them. Even if he was able to defeat some great emperors with the help of the micro-heavenly path, Donghuang the Great was beyond the realm of ordinary great emperors. To be able to fight against Donghuang the Great, he would probably need to wait until his micro-heavenly path was perfected. Likewise, the revelation divine power also retracted, and everything returned to normal. Futian the Great and Yuanshi the Great both stared at Yi Futian. They could have never thought that when they returned to the imperial realm, they would be greeted not by glory but humiliation and defeat. The suppression of Yi Futian and the strength of Donghuang the Great made their return as ancient emperors seem so small and insignificant. It was as if they were not worth mentioning. The times had truly changed. After the collapse of the heavenly path, the era did not seem to be an era they could understand anymore. Now, a brand new era was coming, but they would no longer be its main players. Yi Futian glanced at the cultivators from the Devil Imperial Palace and the Dark Court. Both parties had invited him to come here. But now that he had done what he could, the Devil Emperor did not stop Donghuang the Great from moving against him. "Go back," the Devil Emperor, who was next to Donghuang the Great, urged as well. The rest of the cultivators nodded as they began leaving. Yi Futian glanced at the 2 figures above the sky and stepped away himself. There were still several years in, and in his world, it was decades. After they left, the cultivators in Futian City looked at the state of the Futian clan at this moment. They were dead silent. The entire Futian clan had been destroyed. Previously, Yi Futian had nearly razed it to the ground with a single blow. The ancient god clan had lost many cultivators, and it was a tragic sight. At this moment, the ancient god clan was desolate. How could those glorious ancient god clans in the Divine Prefecture, the top forces that once dominated the land of the Divine Prefecture, end up like this? More importantly, this was after the return of the great emperors. Shouldn't this be their time of revival? Everyone's heart was heavy. It felt like they were being crushed by a giant boulder, making them feel beyond depressed. And that boulder was none other than Yi Futian. Donghuang the Great had the power now, yet he did not end Yi Futian. Did he intend to wait until Yi Futian was elevated into the imperial realm? What would happen if Dongwang the Great was defeated at the 500-year mark? What would happen then? That was something no one dared to contemplate. If that were the case, the ancient god clan would undoubtedly be destroyed. In Donghuang Imperial Palace, Donghuang the Great retracted his divine might as the passageway disappeared. He sat there quietly, his attention focused on the chessboard, and then he made his move. Everything was business as usual, like nothing had happened moments ago. The Devil Emperor held a chess piece in hand as he looked intently at Donghuang the Great. He said with a smile, "Your divine power has increased again. 500 years of cultivation. How can there be no progress?" Donghuang the Great raised his head and responded, "You must be the same as well. Under the Devil's Abyss, bearing the tribulation of the Devil's Abyss, and baptized by it. The actual level of your strength today was difficult to estimate." Devil's Abyss was known as the prison of the heavenly path, and it was not a simple contraption. A smile appeared in those profound eyes of the Devil Emperor as he stared intently on Donghuang the Great. He said, "Donghuang, you won't kill Yi Futian now? Do you want to wait until he is an emperor and destroys Donghuang Imperial Palace to stand before you? Do you want to allow him a chance to do all that he wants to do? Is it because you feel guilty about Emperor Yi Qing's death and you want to make it up to his descendants?" "Your Majesty is overthinking," Donghuang the Great said with a smile. "Of course, there is guilt in my heart, but it's not what you think." "If I'm wrong," the Devil Emperor's eyes were unfathomable as he stared into the eyes of Donghuang the Great and said, "Then, that's even more interesting." "You lost?" Donghuang the Great said as he made his last move on the chessboard. The Devil Emperor looked down, then got up with a hearty laugh. "Then, I guess I'll take a look at this game and see who is playing and how it is played." With that, the Devil Emperor took a single step, then disappeared from Donghuang Imperial Palace. After he left, several people came over and bowed to salute Donghuang the Great. The person in the lead was the Princess of the Divine Prefecture, Donghuang Diyuan. "Your Majesty, what is the purpose of this move by the Devil Emperor?" Li Daoxiu, who was next to Donghuang Diyuan, asked curiously. "Moreover, it seems that it was the will of the Dark Sovereign to goad Yi Futian to come here to the Divine Prefecture, thus intensifying the grievances between the Divine Prefecture and Yi Futian. No?" Donghuang the Great looked into the distance. Those tranquil eyes of his were so clear that it was as if he could see through everything in this world. Perhaps as a test, Donghuang the Great responded. Then he looked at Donghuang Diyuan and the rest of the people and said, "The world has changed drastically with ancient emperors who have returned one after the other. The future has to be a mighty era. In the past, you were all powerful figures standing at the top, but now, you must focus on cultivating harder than ever before and strive to step onto the path of the emperors as soon as possible." "Yes, Your Majesty." Several of them bowed to salute him again. They, too, had sensed the pressure. Was the remark from Donghuang the Great suggesting that Donghuang Imperial Palace was facing some crisis? After Yi Futian returned to Yi Imperial Palace, he continued cultivating in retreat. His thought was the same as Donghuang the Great. The world was undergoing significant changes, and no one knew what the future held. When the age of the gods finally arrived, the only way to remain standing between heaven and earth was by empowering and strengthening oneself. If the prediction by the Buddha of destiny and the rest of the world were true, in a few years, he might have another battle with Donghuang the Great. In his own world, he still had decades to cultivate. Therefore, his only goal now was to continuously improve upon his micro-heavenly path so that he could be a contender against Donghuang the Great. Now, his strength was still one level behind Donghuang the Great. In Yi Imperial Palace, Yi Futian altered the time of the micro-heavenly path so that the gap was getting greater. He came to the space of the void to continue cultivating spear techniques. Numerous phantoms appeared, and spears were unleashed at the same time. Each strike contained an extraordinary power, which could easily penetrate a corner of the world. The battle with Haoyan the Great and Yuan Shi, the Great had given him additional inspiration. His spear techniques incorporated different divine powers of the law, and chief among them was the law of time and space. At the moment of attack, the law of time and space that guided his spear techniques differed from the one guiding the outside world. Thus, it formed a confusion that distorted time and space, causing the terrible time and space storm of vortex. This strike was comprehended after Futian had executed the move countless times, but Futian felt that it still fell short. This strike could be further improved to render it much stronger, even capable of penetrating any divine domain of the Great Path with just one blow. Among the countless shadows, these long spears contained different rules and orders. There was the divine power of the world and the heaven-slaying divine power that had both been integrated into the spear for this blow to explode. He was curious to see what kind of power would be born under different circumstances. To continue learning from these experiences to create the strongest attack possible from the divine method. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. The creation of the divine method was complex if based simply on pure comprehension. It had to be perceived continuously, executed, and then perfected. Futian was completely immersed in his own cultivation, comprehending it time and again. He felt that the cultivation of these spear techniques could surpass the power of the heaven-slaying divine sword and augmented his own combat effectiveness. When the ages of the gods arrived, and there were many more great emperors in this world, it would depend on whose rules and order and whose divine method were the strongest. Futian spent a long time cultivating this time, almost 10 years, to comprehend this one strike. For him, cultivation was the priority at the moment. Last time, if it weren't for those cultivators from the devil world, he wouldn't have gone out at all because he knew it wouldn't do much good. However, when he reached the strength he needed to suppress Donghuang the Great, the ancient god clans could be destroyed at his pleasure. Futian's figure stood in front of a starry world at this time. With a long spear in hand, his figure flashed and disappeared from where he was. The long spear broke through the air and pierced that world of stars. Instantly, a divine light pierced through the world completely, then continued its mighty momentum further into the distance. A hole appeared above that starry world. It had been pierced through, broken. Futian returned to where he was, still holding the long spear. Then, he launched another strike. When the strike fell, a violent sound resounded between heaven and earth, accompanied by great commotions. The world disintegrated and shattered in an instant. In this broken-up world, a storm of destruction lurked, raging in that space. Unravel. Futian appeared tranquil. The spear was still in his hand as he looked at another world in the distance. The divine power that came out of the spear in his hand was beyond astounding. At this moment, Futian was solemn. Next, it was the last strike in his 10 years of comprehension, and it was also the strongest. The unleashing of this strike would result in disaster. With a thought, his figure disappeared. In the next moment, the spear made an impact on a starry world right in front of him. Bang! Accompanied by a dull thud, a terrifying vortex appeared in the next moment, and dull rumbling sounds were heard. This corner of the world was collapsing at an incredible speed and was then swallowed up by the vortex storm at an equally terrifying pace. In an instant, that entire world disappeared. Not even a trace was left behind. Even that time and space continuum remained distorted. In front of Futian, a terrifying and persistent vortex seemed to have taken shape, still busy engulfing everything. Entombed. These were the names that Futian gave these 3 spear techniques. Their attack style was slightly different, but the power was undeniably stronger as it progressed. They were broken, unraveled, and entombed. Futian was quite pleased. This divine method of attack was created in 10 years. If he was to face Futian the Great again, he was sure he would be able to slay his enemy successfully instead of letting him off the hook like the last time. Furthermore, the attack of this divine method will increase along with his divine rule power and become stronger. At the same time, if his comprehension deepened, it would also be another factor to make it stronger. He wondered how terrible it would be if his micro-heavenly path was perfected and entombed was unleashed. Would it be able to swallow up an entire realm? After he cultivated, Futian watched the rest of the world to see how the others had progressed in their cultivation. His consciousness was soon attracted to a place as his eyes zoomed in on a certain location. As if he had penetrated the boundless world, he saw Gu Donglu standing in the void over there, as a boundless and gigantic pattern appeared to surround him. In this boundless and massive pattern, there were demon gods with frightening auras with an unparalleled demonic energy that permeated the space. Futian gave the divine demon diagram to Gu Donglu for cultivation. And now, when he was cultivating, Gu Donglu had integrated the diagram into his own path, intending on creating his own divine domain. Afterward, Futian looked at another place and saw the Supreme Swordlord with his eyes closed, comprehending in cultivation. Hundreds of millions of divine swords surrounded him as he sat cross-legged in the middle of a sword domain. It was as if he had morphed into swordsmanship himself. Somewhere else, Blind Tai was forging in the firmament. His whole body was dazzling with radiance, surrounded by divine flames. His form was massive as he held the divine hammer and beat down on the divine item again and again. There were countless phantoms of the divine hammer in the surrounding space. It was as if they were all motioned by the divine power. The sight itself was shocking. In the place where Channy was, his body was full of brilliance as he was becoming one with the light. The surrounding world was full of light, which illuminated the infinite space and brought light to this world. After that, Futian watched many people cultivating as well, and when his thoughts moved, the divine rule power would descend in this micro-heavenly path, so that all the cultivators in the imperial palace could bathe in the divine light of law and feel the power of this micro-heavenly path. Thus, their cultivation could progress much faster and find it easier to comprehend. Since he was the creator of the micro-heavenly path, it was natural that he could create the most favorable conditions for cultivation. After accomplishing all this, Futian continued to comprehend and cultivate to perfect his own micro-heavenly path. He was delighted with everything right now. The flow of time was different, and with time, the people of Yi Imperial Palace would no doubt be able to catch up with those cultivators on the outside. Even if the age of the gods were upon them, there would be a place for Yi Imperial Palace. While Futian and the others were cultivating in Yi Imperial Palace, no one else was idle. Everyone worked very hard. The heavenly realm had now recuperated much of its prosperity from former times, especially where the 99th heaven was located. It was now an extremely popular area with numerous cultivators who gathered here. It was more than expected for those cultivators from before to stay behind. Above the 99th heaven, many top figures cultivated here, and their cultivations were fearsome. In the heavenly palace, Ji Wudao was bathed in the divine light of the heavenly path. He sat cross-legged as if there was a divine matrix underneath him that resonated with the heavenly path. It purified and tempered his divine body. At the moment, Ji Wudao's entire body dazzled, like a sun of the heavenly path. The divine light which lingered upon his divine body contained a supreme divine might as if he was high above and compelled those around him to worship him. Ji Wudao had already inherited the throne of Heavenly Emperor and reigned as the current Heavenly Emperor. Although his cultivation was not yet completed, and he was one step away from becoming the Heavenly Emperor, he was close to reaching that level of perfection. He was so close that many people thought it wouldn't be long before Ji Wudao stepped onto the throne. At this juncture, a cultivator in the 99th heaven stood up. Just by standing there casually, this man exuded an air of authority that compelled everyone to look up at him as if he was a god. This man was indeed a deity, an existence at the level of an ancient emperor. More importantly, he had already recovered his cultivation on the imperial realm, and he was ready to leave. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL D0T C0M. Where do you think you are going? It was Ji Wudao. He remained sitting cross-legged above the heavenly palace, but seemed omnipotent about everything below and detected that this great emperor intended on leaving. I have proved myself again in the imperial realm, and my realm is now stabilized. It's time for me to go out and take a look, replied that great emperor. His hair was very long, tied behind him. He had a short white beard. There was a celestial aura about the man. Elders should cultivate with us a while longer. Wait until your realm is rock solid before attempting to go out, said Ji Wudao. His words caught the attention of many cultivators. Back then, Ji Wudao had proclaimed that those who stayed on to cultivate here were considered members of the imperial palace and must obey his will. In the past few years, Those who grew in the heavenly palace were dedicated to self-improvement, so no one had considered leaving. Naturally, there had been no conflict around the subject. But many people knew that conflicts of this sort were bound to occur. Those great emperors were not submissive figures, especially not to a youngster. The main reason they stayed behind to cultivate was that they could not resist the temptation of the heavenly path. But if they became emperors, there was no way they would want to be bound in any way. The realm of the emperor was at the top of the cultivation world, nearly at the peak, which was high above everything else in the world. They were incredibly proud of their own achievements. Indeed, anyone who could comprehend the imperial realm had already surpassed the ordinary state of existence. For them to submit to any other power, it had to be someone compelling for them to submit willingly. No, the time has come, I will go for a walk. As soon as the old man's voice faded, his figure disappeared. He passed through the 99th heaven and left for the outside. He had no intention to hang around this place more than he had to, and he was wary of this piece of the heavenly path. If the heavenly path were conscious in any way, fighting under the heavenly path would surely arouse the dissatisfaction of the heavenly path, and danger would ensue. Therefore, he didn't want to waste his time arguing, and chose to leave right away. When they saw the old man leaving, suddenly all the cultivators' interest above the 99th heaven was somewhat piqued. This was the first time someone in the imperial realm had broken his promise after stepping into this realm. Many of them had intended on doing the same thing when it was their turn. They wanted to see how Ji Wudao would handle people like that. Ji Wudao, who was cultivating, opened his eyes and gave the area below a quick glance before he got up and walked off in like manner. The figures of both men disappeared simultaneously, leaving the 99th heaven. The old man arrived outside the 99th heaven, above the heavenly imperial city. He continued on his way, eager to leave this place as soon as possible. In the 99th heaven, that piece of heavenly path continued to exist, and he was leery. At this moment, a terrifying aura descended, and the old man frowned. He stopped as he turned to look at Ji Wudao, who was chasing after him, and said, "Although you are the future heavenly emperor, your great path has not yet been completed, and you dared to chase after me?" When his voice fell, the colors of the firmament changed, and the sky turned into a massive and boundless 8 trigrams. The trigrams circulated, and there seemed to be a pair of yin and yang fishes that swam within it. In the area below, countless cultivators looked up into the sky. Their hearts trembled with fear. In a single turning of the mind, the sky was covered, and the firmament had been transformed into a matrix. The divine light shot out from the 8 trigrams. It was extremely frightening. Buzz. A massively terrifying divine power fell from the 8 trigrams, and the 5 elements between heaven and earth seemed to be contained in it as they unleashed towards Ji Wudao. The destructive divine light penetrated the void, intending to slay directly at Ji Wudao. But Ji Wudao merely stood there quietly, without making any evasive moves. When the terrifying divine light fell on him, his divine body dazzled, and the 9 dragons true will rose up. It was the power of the law existing in the heavenly path. This divine power rushed into the firmament as if to turn into part of the heavenly path, rolling towards the 8 trigrams. With the 9 dragons true will protecting him, his body transcended the 5 elements, impervious to the source of yin nor yang. Boom! The terrifying divine power surged, and the pattern of the 8 trigrams above the firmament began to twist and deform. It was as if a supreme force had emerged, devouring the 8 trigrams pattern into it. His great path divine realm was collapsing and being swallowed up. The old man looked up at the heaven and earth surrounding him and saw traces of terrifying divine power besieging his own great path divine realm, turning it into chaotic space. In this chaotic space, a phantom of Ji Wudao appeared, like the master of this world. "What's this?" The old man's face changed in shock. What kind of existence was Ji Wudao? "There is a price for going back on your promises," a voice resounded between heaven and earth. Then he sensed a terrifying aura, which made his great path divine realm collapse like mad until it was destroyed. Even his divine power had been engulfed. Buzz. The divine light of the 8 trigrams radiated, which was transformed by him and bloomed an unparalleled divine light. However, Ji Wudao directly reached out with his hand, as the pattern of the 8 trigrams shattered again suddenly, rushing towards his hands and was swallowed up whole. Bang! Ji Wudao clutched the old man's head in his giant hand. Immediately after, the divine power in his body was frantically devoured by Ji Wudao. Even his spiritual soul was swallowed into Ji Wudao's body. "What kind of existence are you?" the old man roared as his entire person was being devoured and turned into wisps of currents, all of which were absorbed by Ji Wudao. The cultivators below had no idea what had just happened. All they saw was that when everything returned to its previous tranquility, the old man was already gone. An existence at the level of a great emperor had disappeared just like that out of thin air, immolated by Ji Wudao. This was not a battle between equals, but a one-sided suppression. Had Ji Wudao become so powerful already? All hail to the heavenly emperor. The people in the heavenly realm were extremely excited as they bowed to show their obeisance to Ji Wudao, who was above the sky. The heavenly realm had finally been revived. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.